Yeah, it's horrible.
That's what you look like.
Yeah, I'm gonna smell smoke anytime. Sure. But I never did, but it looked like the whole country.
Some, I saw some.
Ben,
Yes.
what do we do to get online here in the city? Which one of the,
It is the.
I started one years ago.
Well, could you get it?
oh, okay, well, that makes sense.
Try to make it easy to remember, somewhat secure.
I hadn't seen it. Yeah. See, I tried to start.
Because if you go to like a 30.
Yeah, you gotta go way out. Yeah, I tried to start one. They told me I didn't. 6 feet.
So Mary, we have very.
Okay. You want to have these thoughts? I don't see that in this yeah, that's the greatest. I didn't know. I need to know this or not. Well, he lectures they go. Yeah, I guess the seals are worn out. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, it's some.
Oh, no, it's just that it's not. And it may have that apostrophe.
I've seen them. Oh, you did?
It's going. No. Okay. No.
Did not see it.
I think you can. Give me a second.
Well, you know, what they say. Huh?
Do that too.
Okay.
Oh, no. No, there's very few
It's gonna work, it's gonna work.
people that
I have confidence.
lean more on the
I stand a better chance than if it is.
Except.
See there?
Yeah.
I'll bill you later.
All right.
I'm joking.
I don't mind.
Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Roll call, Joe Wilson.
Julie Berger.
Walter Thomas. Steve Meisner.
Patrick Gotcher.
We have Bradley Enderley, our attorney here, and Ben.
And Barry Hudson, and our financial advisor, Nick Lewis.
Who's he? Where's the financial advisor?
Right there.
Okay, we're gonna stand for the pledge, the United States of America.
Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't know this one.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Mayor, we talked about this, shifting our agenda around a little bit for the people that are going to be here and taking action. We have Nick with Hilltop Securities who's here. We got our bids back for the bonds. I shared some information with you guys earlier, but I want to let Nick come up and present the results so that you guys can take a look at that.
And let me go ahead and say this, in order to let a lot of people speak that are making presentations tonight, is it okay with you to change the schedule up? And then they can go.
Absolutely.
You're talking about change.
Great idea.
Don't worry, we're gonna let them come in first.
I got one real quick question. On this work session, is that open to the city or is that not? It's just, where we just doing discussions and stuff. right?
We're gonna be doing discussion.
It is open to the public.
Work sessions are open to the
No,
public.
I mean, for that, on the work session, there. Work session or what? Only during the agenda items, right?
Work sessions are basically discussion for you guys and staff and for people to come and present information to you guys to learn more about it.
But I think you're asking if the public can speak.
Right.
It's up to the mayor to determine. We
And I wanted to ask Bradley a question about that. You know the rule that we had that the public could come up at the beginning of each one of the items and speak, that they started about a year and a half ago? Did the COVID stop that for a while in the meetings? Because, you know, the meetings started getting so long, especially in the bigger cities. You know what I'm talking about,
Yeah, are
Steve?
you referring to that new state law?
Yes.
I brought that up.
Correct, that provision
Still
has
saying,
been suspended for the time being. It's still a law on the books, but it is suspended for the time being due to the declaration of the emergency.
all right. And we will let the public speak.
Okay.
I don't think we have that many here tonight, but. Nick?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, do I need to hold this mic?
Sure, please do. It'll come through a lot better for the people behind you.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Not yet.
It's there, it's just what's not.
See if it works.
Hello?
Not yet.
Right now.
Hello? No? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yay.
Maybe I'll speak loudly into it because I have to use my other hand to flip through this. Mayor, Council, my name is Nick Bulash from Hilltop Securities, the city's financial advisor. And tonight culminates the last step in the issuance of the certificates of obligation that you started when you approved the notice of intent resolution back in December. This morning, we formally took bids and received bids for the city's $3 million of improvements. And so I'm going to flip through this book real quick.
Okay, you said 3 million, is it 3 million or is it 2,930,000?
Yes, sir. So looking at the cover page, the final par amount was $2,930,000. That will fund just a little bit over $3 million of improvements, and I'll get to how that makes sense here in a minute. What I'm really pleased to report, and I'm sure Ben reported, is that the city was rated A+ by Standard & Poor's, which is a phenomenal credit rating, especially of a city of this size, about 150 million of assessed valuation. Your first rating out of the chute, your first year to collect property taxes was in 2020. You did not have many trends to look back on, but I'm very pleased with the hard work that Ben put into it, and the city staff and the council approved policies, and I'll talk to that here in a minute. And so it was a bit of a domino effect. When you received an A+ rating, if you look below, it says AA, assured guarantee, municipal AGM insured. Because he had an A+ rating, we had a commercial insurance company that effectively co-signed for the debt, which then it made the city's debt more marketable than institutions. And so again, it was kind of a domino effect in a positive manner with the great credit rating. Behind tab A is the full rating report, and I'm not going to go through this verbatim, but just to kind of hit some high points and some commentary we received from the rating analysts. There's no history, as you know, with tax collections, but what is going on within the city is very positive. The adopted policies and procedures established a great start, and the city is being very strategic with its future development plans. They go through and they noted an adequate management, but again, that should be based on the policies and procedures that the city has put in place, a higher rated management. But the reason is because they just want to see some history of the city following those policies and procedures into the future. So expect that to go up in terms of their assessment for the management. Very strong budget flexibility, very strong liquidity, strong institutional framework, and that all Texas cities carry that because of the state laws in the state of Texas. And just to put it in perspective, an A+ rating is where you are. The next step up is a AA-, AA+, AAA, and that's as high as it goes. Below A+, you have A-, triple Bs, plus, minus, double Bs, plus, minus, all the single Bs, the triple Cs, and all the way down. So you're very high up on the spectrum. Behind tab B, this is the bids that were received this morning at 10 o'clock. The city received 4 bids, with the winning bid being BOK Financial Services at 1.3384%. That's 20-year fixed rate, 1.3384%. Cover bid was Raymond James at 1.377. So a very solid cover bid, but phenomenal rates. My projection started out in the 3s, and then as we got to A+, it went to around 2, and here we are at 1.338%. Directly behind the bid tab is the final numbers and the final debt service schedule. This is not going to change. This is the debt service payments that the city will have going forward. Something to point out, if you look at the fiscal total, a lot of numbers on here, but the pretty much top right number, $143,000. The city budgeted $150,000 in its budget this year to make the 21 payment, and we are right at that, about $145,000. Payments stay a little bit lower for the next couple of years, and then they reach about $180,000 and level off for the remaining term. And that's because obviously assessed valuation growth will continue throughout the city, and the city will grow into these bonds. But again, it's not a large increase over that time period, a large ramp up, but well beyond and well through our projections. The next thing I want to point out on this schedule is if you look at the coupon column, those are the actual coupon rates that that you would be paying to the investor. So you see,
Where are you?
we are on the second page, just behind tab B. Yes, sir, that one right there with the blue border.
The third column, where it says coupon at the top.
So if you look at this and you see, okay, I see 3%, I see 1.2%, 1.4s, and 1.6 at the very bottom. How in the world is our average interest rate of 1.33% when there's only 2 maturities that are below 1.33%? And if you look at the bottom right of that page, you see where it says cash premium from purchaser, $147,000. So what that means is the purchaser is going to buy your $2,930,000 of bonds, plus they're going to give you a check for $147,000 in cash. So that cash premium is factored into your average interest rate. So the average interest rate is 1.338%. You sold a little bit less than par than needed to because investors want premium bonds and they're willing to pay more than 100 pennies on the dollar for that, and that's what you've benefited from here. Excuse me.
So what that means is we're actually going to end up with a little bit more than $3 million in net proceeds.
And then finally, behind tab C, and I'm not going to go through this page by page, but if you have trouble falling asleep tonight, feel free to read through it. This is the preliminary official statement that is used to market the city's debt. It contains anything that an investor would want to know before making an investment decision in the city's bonds. This is preliminary, so we will now update this with the final rates, the final pricing information, and provide it to the purchaser of the bonds, BOK Financial Securities, here in the next week, so they can distribute it to their investors who purchase the bonds. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and I'm very pleased to report on the sale and recommend approval. And again, happy to answer any questions.
So the interest rate of 1.338, blah, 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 it stays for the whole period.
Yes, sir.
So that's what they're charging the city. So how do they go out and make money?
The BOK Financial Securities.
Yes.
So they
Well,
did.
what's going to encourage somebody to buy this as opposed to some other one?
So that's a good point, a good question. So BOK Financial Securities makes money whenever they, I'm kind of getting inside baseball here. So they're going to write you a check for $2,930,000 plus $147,000 of interest. If you look at the pricing summary, and it's not in here, the coupons, yields, and bond prices, maybe that comes up to those two numbers plus $20,000. And so they make money on the spread. But the thing is that they are taking interest rate risk. They don't have all of these bonds sold, but they are saying we will pay you this amount of money. They provided the city a good faith check of almost $70,000 to say if we don't buy these bonds in full, then you can have this good faith check. So they are taking risk if the market moves, and but that is how they make money, and they sell the bonds off. The market moves for them, then they make a little bit more money. If it moves against them, then they lose money.
Well, that didn't answer the question. Why? Okay, this is a real scenario. I'm retired from a big corporation, and when I retired, they gave me a bunch of money. I rolled it over to an individual account, and they email me, call me, text me all the time, say we purchased bonds today for your portfolio, and they're going to pay 6.5%. So why would somebody come and buy these as opposed to some other bond?
Nick, can I jump in?
Absolutely.
So to give you an example, in my last city, we had $60 million in deposit with our local bank. 60 million. Yeah, 60. The bank has to provide some type of a guarantee, 1-1, which means that bank had to go out into the market and buy bonds or something that has a high degree of security and they had to provide that to us as a guarantee. In our current bank, we have 500,000 and some odd dollars. So a lot of these banks will actually buy these bonds because they have depositors that require a level of security that they have to maintain. And if they don't maintain those securities, which is usually going to be municipal bonds, some type of a treasury bond, something of that nature, which basically pays nothing. But if they do not have that, then they cannot be a depository for an organization like us, because it's required for them to maintain a state or any type of really governmental organization, their deposits within those accounts. So they may take this to market and sell it, or they may have a bank, or they may decide that they're going to keep it themselves. We don't really worry about what's going to end up with it on the other side of it, because we don't care. What we want to know is are we going to get a good rate for these bonds when we go out in the market? Are we going to be within the range we're looking for? And the risk is on them to go out and either make money on it or not make money on it. But they're going to have clientele and people who are interested in whatever this type of product is, where they go to buy it.
And to answer your question, as an investor, I agree. I mean, a 6.5% bond versus a 1.36% bond, I'd take the 6.5%, but I'd have to assume that the 6.5% bond does not have a A+ credit rating with a AA insurance policy on it. So it's credit.
So, when we just, okay, this is a Bradley thing, so I think it's-
So this has multiple maturities. The first one of a 10-year maturity and then kind of like stepping off after that up to 2040.
Yes, sir. Actually, it's 20 maturities. So each of those bonds is it could be a different buyer. Each of those bonds, it's $5,000 denomination. So, the first maturity could be purchased by 20 different people, so to speak. But that's what they look at. And as a city, you put all of those various maturities together to try to construct the debt service payments that you want, similar to like a home mortgage or anything where it's level payments or you try to hit your payment thresholds. But you're exactly right. It's 20 different maturities, 20 different securities.
We're not taking any action on this. This is a report.
No, this tonight, you guys need to, you'll be voting on an ordinance to sell these bonds or to reject these bids. And they could take that.
That's the item 7A, which.
Correct. That's the item 7A that you emailed me about previously.
Okay, this is 7A.
These wouldn't fall under Rule 144A, would they?
They would not.
No, okay.
They are registered. With, that QSIP. I mean, I guess some 144A stuff, some of that has QSIPs, but this is not a accredited investor offering type deal.
I'm sorry, what does the sewage have to do with this? We're asking on 7A.
Oh, Nick,
Yeah, sure. It's a nuance of state law that in order for a city to issue a certificate of obligation, you have to have a secondary source of revenue that is pledged. Even though the intent and the thought process is that you're going to pay and securitize these from taxes, it's just a constitutional requirement that you have a secondary source of revenue to add into the pledge. 99% of the time, cities use waterworks and sewer system, net revenue pledge, surplus revenue pledge. But in this case, since the city does not have that system, we had to use the solid waste system.
It's trash, or trash service, not sewage, trash service.
Okay. Waste disposal system.
Yeah.
Solid.
Yes.
Yeah.
I asked the same question.
And she did too. Okay, we have discussed it. Does anybody want to make a motion? Or does
There's no.
More discussion.
Anybody else got questions? I brought this up previously, and the people in the city need to know that this is a obligation, a legal obligation, and if the city were to default for any reason, then they could come in and tell us to raise our tax rate to X amount of money so they could get their money back. Is that correct?
It would be secured by the property taxes, correct? And so to the extent, as long as it is there, you would be obligated to collect taxes to meet this obligation.
But
Worst case scenario, so let's just, plan for the worst, hope for the best, planning for the worst, that would be worst case.
So, let me, just worst case scenario, is the payment schedule you're looking at on that page. So years 1 through 3, we're right around $150,000. The rest of the 17 years, we're right around $180,000. In our current tax rate, that's gonna be about 10 pennies, which is what we discussed and what we budgeted for the current year to make those payments. So if the council decides at some point in the future that they want to reduce their tax rate, you can reduce your tax rate to the point where all you're paying is the bonds, but you cannot reduce beyond that point. You have to return the bond proceeds that you guys have, meet the terms of your agreement.
and this money is not dedicated to any one thing in the city?
Yeah, it's when you, if you read through the document, the notice of intent that we sent out, we have to define the specific projects that we'd be looking at. And the number one project is streets. And as we said, if there's a pocket of money left over that we don't really have enough money to make sense to go out and try and do a streets project, because the next streets project costs $300,000 and we have $120,000, then we do have ability and flexibility, the way that the document was written, for us to make improvements to city facilities or parks or other areas that the council then can make that determination. So yeah, there's a little bit of flexibility, but this is primarily this is for the streets project that we've been talking about for the last year. Yep.
For street.
And so this goes through and you will be able to start that within like the next month.
Well, so
You said money.
we're gonna talk about that a little later as well as on the
I'm sorry.
agenda, but tell them from the standpoint, they approve tonight, what are the next steps?
The next steps, assuming the council approves the transaction, is that a transcript is compiled of all of the legal proceedings that have gone forth, the notice of intent, the ordinance, et cetera. It is sent to the Texas Attorney General's office, and the Attorney General reviews it. It takes about 30 days to make sure that everything was done legally. And so with that in mind, we anticipate delivery to be March 3rd. So in about 30 days or so, that's when the funds would be deposited in the city's bank account.
So just as a clarification, without these bonds, the streets cannot be done with current funds?
Well, to give you a frame of reference, the branding iron is gonna cost, and these are rough numbers, these are initial estimates, so don't slap me on the wrist if I'm wrong. When the engineers come back and we get the final survey, and we know exactly which thing need to be done. But we're looking at branding iron costing around $1 million. We don't have $1 million. So you couldn't fix branding iron, let alone anything on, Hilltop or Chisholm Trails.
That's
So-
a third of this bond.
Pretty close.
And that's to asphalt branding.
So on branding iron, it's gonna require pretty much full rehabilitation. So we're gonna have to reconstruct that road because it has not been maintained. The drainage is not appropriately taken care of. So we're gonna go and fix the drainage. We're gonna redo the road and put in a brand new road. That road should last us, 40 to 50 years if we maintain it appropriately moving forward. The issue that we've had in the past is the roads were put in, but there was not any maintenance schedule that was put in place in order to make sure that they were being mitigated so that you could extend that life.
Well, that has nothing to do with this, so.
Well, I mean, it does. These proceeds are directly gonna go to pay to fix the roads. If we do not,
But we've been over and over this, and you can fix the drainage, you can fix these sub-base and still do chip and seal and save an awful lot of money.
So we can have that conversation from the standpoint, but the most expensive part of the street is not the asphalt. It is the sub-base and the
That's what I'm
drainage
saying.
work. And then if you chip seal it, chip seal is not really a long-term solution for a gravel road. Because what you're talking about doing is putting a chip seal over a gravel road. Chip seal, it tends to be put on top of an existing asphalt surface to extend the life of an asphalt surface.
The water is still penetrating, so.
Correct, because water will penetrate it and you'll still get into the subbase, and you'll end up, especially if you have any type of vehicles that are heavy, trash trucks, semi trucks, and trailers, heavy equipment trucks, school buses, anything along those lines on chip seal, fire units. On a chip seal road that is not on it, it's not built right, it doesn't have the asphalt on it, it's just not gonna have the same type of life. And your cost per square foot is just, the value is not there. It doesn't make sense to do that. If you wanna go downgrade in the streets, then what you do is you go to a true gravel road. And you completely, now you're still gonna have that same cost associated with subsurface work, coming out, grading those things, putting the appropriate crown in, fixing the drainage. So you're still gonna spend a large portion of the same amount of money that you would before, but you just end up with a gravel road. And that's an option that the council could look at as well. The direction that we've been given from the get-go was to restore these roads to an asphalt surface, which we can then begin to maintain and make sure that we do not, go down the same path that it's done before, where it deteriorates to the point where you have to rehabilitate completely.
Who said asphalt? You said we, who said asphalt?
The council's direction to me, from the day that I got here, was to put in asphalt. The engineering and the design standards for the city of Fairview for roads is either asphalt or concrete. So, the city standard, what we're asking for everybody to do is asphalt or concrete. Now, concrete is significantly more expensive than going into asphalt. And this is a pretty good mix from the standpoint of being able to get value and long-term sustainability, but still providing a quality product for the people that are living in the community.
So the cost of these bonds has got to be, what, about 25% of the property tax revenue that the city brings in?
It's about 33%, it's about a third. So right now, we're talking about 30 pennies of property tax revenue, and that's around just under $500,000. And of those 30 pennies, 10 pennies are going to be required to pay this bond back.
In the information that we have, you have all the meetings that we have discussed.
Yeah,
The road
the roads
construction,
and all that stuff.
were you able to see that, how many different meetings that we had discussing this? And you presented several slideshows.
Oh, yeah, we've had,
on
this has been on the agenda pretty much, at least, since I've been here, it's been here on the agenda at least 4 or 5 times.
Well, I bring this up just as a point of clarification. I think, again, my feel is that we're getting, we've lost our.
Not your time, we'll get back up there.
I think that, at least my feel, the community wants their roads improved. I mean, if I'm wrong, I've misread it, but I think that's, that the Bolton, the city wants to have better roads. Driving down Hilltop and some of these others.
Well, I think it's beyond want, I think it's a need.
Well, I agree.
And if we're going to do it, then why not do it right instead of halfway?
Well, I understand, but if it's good
If
enough.
you're gonna do it halfway, it's just gonna.
Then we're gonna be
it's
here
gonna
again.
come out.
Cost more money.
But if it's good enough for the county and the state highway
Well,
department.
mine, we want to be just good enough for them, why don't we just be better?
So, Steve, to your point, it's not good enough for the county. The county would never accept a gravel chip seal road. They're gonna require you to put in the asphalt, and then much like you see here on 407, the reason why you got that top surface, which is kind of rough, that's because they've done a chip seal over top of that asphalt surface at some point to extend the life of 407. If you get to the Denton County line, you can see where they just installed a new layer of chip seal when you move Wise County to the Denton County. They're not chip sealing a gravel road. They're chip sealing on an existing asphalt surface because that extends the life of that road. In most cases, you're looking at 5 to 7 years. So they're not doing it as a application in and of itself on a gravel road. They're doing it to extend the life of a asphalt road.
And there's one place over there, that they didn't get it off, in a curve, when they chip sealed it over there. It washed out the first time they had a big rain.
So I can speak to this a little bit more for you as well. In Ennis, they decided we're not going to have good streets, we're not gonna have bad streets, we're gonna have okay streets everywhere. And so they invested in chip seal equipment, they bought the grinder, they bought the piece of heavy equipment to come in and grind up those things and chip seal them. The first year they did around 10,000 linear feet, around 2 miles. The second year they did about 11,000 linear feet, another couple miles. The third year, they were going back to redo the first year's job because it was not done well. You had a lot of washboarding. Anytime you got any type of rain, that moisture just penetrates the surface. You ended up with potholes. So the idea of having good roads everywhere, or okay roads everywhere with chip seal, I've already seen what that looks like over a 3-year time frame, and it's not successful unless you're applying it to an existing surface, and all you're trying to do is extend the life of that surface.
I've seen some of the patches that's done over the past year, higher or lower, it's probably no better than it was, and I know there's a lot of money spent to do that.
Yeah, last year we put out around 60,000 pounds, 30 tons of cold patch to try and create an interim solution, a gap between where we are today and when we get the roads fixed. And we're gonna try and continue that. So you see the load out here in front of the building today, we're gonna continue trying to fill those things until we get things completed. $3 million does not fix the problem. In 2 years, or when we have additional value in these pennies that we have from construction of new homes and stuff of that nature, we're gonna be having the same conversation. In all reality, we probably need another $8 to $10 million just to fix the roads in Hilltop. This is not a one and done type of a deal. It's something that we need to be intentional about. We need to have a good plan in place. And when we decide to go out to market, we need to make sure that we're prepared and ready and our financials are in order so that we are able to enter the market just like we are right now. I was surprised by our A+ rating. Nick was a little bit surprised by it.
Yeah, really.
When we got our bids this morning, when we were looking at it, it came in 50 basis points lower than what I was anticipating as well. So, we're in a really good spot from the standpoint of where we are right now, with the cost of money to go out and actually make a real impact. Now, if you look at this, you don't necessarily see the cost of this debt issue, but Nick, estimate, what are our fees for this issue?
I think all in fees are $70,000 approximately, and that's covers a whole host of things: S&P's fee, my fee, bond counsel's fee, the Texas Attorney General review fee, paying agent registrar fee, and all of that is paid through the premium of the bond issue, that cash that.
That would be the first cash that they give us.
Correct. So, Steve,
So
you and
that's
I,
what we pay.
we had talked previously, and you said, well, how about we just slow this down? Well, if we slow this down and we say we're gonna go out and issue $1 million, our cost of issuance is still gonna be right around $70,000. The most expensive money that we will ever issue in bonds is the first $1 million. Because that pays for the majority of the fees, because whether you're doing a $1 million or a $10 million bond issue, the same amount of work goes into it. So by taking these projects, and instead of having these discrete, we're gonna do a little bit this year, a little bit next year, a little bit the following year, the city actually is saving around $600,000 between the mobilization fees and the cost of fees being eaten up by financial advisors, not to eat them up, but, the fees on that side of it. So if we're gonna fix the roads, it makes a lot of sense to do it in a large enough chunk of money where we're not wasting 15% of the total proceeds in fees that just get burnt.
I understand the need to fix roads. That's the biggest concern. I don't guess I've heard anybody talk about anything else except fixing roads. But regardless of this bond issue, the city's tax revenue for its first year, whatever fiscal year that is, was $4.5 million. Is that right? Approximately?
No,
What was it?
it was around $500,000 for the first year, and that was because we had a 105% pay rate, which I've never seen before either. So people prepaid the taxes, I suppose. So, our revenues that we're anticipating for property tax revenue in the current budget is $476,000.
So
This is gonna run about $150,000 per year for us to make yearly payments.
And this was intentional.
And it's for 20 years.
Yeah, this is intentional. When Nick and I first sat down and talked, I said, Nick, we don't have enough money in the first 3 years for us to make if we were to spread this out evenly, let's keep it to 150 so we don't have to mess with our tax rate. And we're gonna see some houses come online, which are gonna help offset that. And when we get out to year 3, we'll have enough increase in valuation that we'll be able to absorb that additional cost of dollars. So what you're seeing here is not a random, 150, 150, 150. This was intentional. We needed to plan this where we can be down the road a ways, get some of these houses into the coffers from San Antonio adding to the tax base, and then we can start to absorb that over the rest of the 20-year time frame.
And right now, Steve, you're just trying to double check with everyone. This is the way we really want to go.
I have no doubt that roads need to be fixed, but how much of that 500,000 did we spend on roads in this first year?
Last year, they spent about $100,000. And I'll tell you this, and this is gonna sound really bad coming from a city administrator.
No, I'm gonna answer it for you. You're about to say, we were just throwing money away.
It was absolutely wasted. All of that money, that $100,000 the city spent last year patching roads is in the ditch, which is gonna cost us money to clean out this year. So not only did we spend $100,000 putting that stuff down, we're now gonna have to spend some money to get it back out of the ditch.
And looking at the history,
That's all we're gonna be doing.
Yeah, every time we put a patch in, we're creating an additional problem because we're gonna have to clean those ditches out and make sure that we lower it to the point where we can have adequate and appropriate flow of water.
and looking at the history that you have here in this, we started on this April 2020. And then we started making, we hired the PK to come in, look at the roads, Chris Chaw. He looked at all of that. We've had Sluter in here with us, and then we hired Nick. And during that whole time, we said, do we want to take this approach? And everybody pretty well said, yes.
PK is the one we paid $300+ to.
So Pacheco Cook is our consulting engineer, and yes, they are preparing the construction documents. That's the $300,000.
Why does it take more than $300,000 for somebody to tell us which road needs to be fixed?
That's not what it is. If you're building a house, you have to have plans for your people to come out and actually build the structure. It's no different with the road. They have to come out and survey it. They have to make sure that the leveling is done right. They have to make sure that the ditch and the drainage is done right. In some of these cases, they're gonna have to come back and tell us we need to lower a culvert, 12 inches because the water is backing up here. It's not as simple as just going out and throwing down some asphalt and walking away and saying, deal done.
And are we going to be billing all our citizens that have to have their culvert raised, lowered, or whatever?
So in Hilltop, I don't think that we're gonna have a whole lot of that that's required, but we've got another person who's gonna be starting hopefully beginning of next week, kind of replacing Jamie the way he was doing. And we're gonna try and accommodate and work with the homeowners to the extent that we can to get those things fixed. Ultimately, that culvert is their responsibility, but we have designed some tools to reform them and get them fixed. And what we had talked to the previous council with, and we can talk about here, I was planning on talking about it later on, is we purchased the equipment, the jetting equipment to go out there and help get them cleared out, to clear out the silted in and crushed culverts. And what the previous council had said is let's go ahead and say the city will provide the labor and the materials, but we want the homeowner to cover half of the cost of the labor with doing it. Now, the homeowner can fix it themselves. We have tools that they can come and borrow from City Hall, or they can let us come out and fix it, and we would ask them to participate in the cost of fixing their private property. Because it's theirs.
We have some really poor people in this edition, in the Hilltop Ranch. We have some really poor people. So is there going to be some consideration for the 85-year-old woman who can't fix her own culvert to let her give her a payment plan or something?
I mean, we're more than happy to work with anybody to get it fixed. Ultimately, it has to get fixed one way or the other. So, from the standpoint, what we're talking about, when we did the test to go see what it would take to fix a crushed culvert that was silted in, it took us about 3 hours. So we're talking about $60 to $70 in labor costs, which means for a homeowner, you'd be talking about $30 to $35 would be the average cost.
Very reasonable.
But they had to pay for the culvert.
We built the tools so we can actually recover the culverts and not have to do the major cost of that is the excavation and putting in a new culvert. If we can reform it, then there's no reason for us to have to excavate.
So I don't see any other alternative unless others do. I mean, other than a bond if we want to do something short term. Otherwise, you gotta wait until property taxes increase, more homes are built to get enough funds. And by then, your roads will run down even further and more problems.
Costs more.
It's gonna cost more in the long run. So in order to start fixing them now, I don't see any other way except you gotta borrow money to make it happen.
Yeah, so when we structured this bond proceeds, we have some of these proceeds that are 10-year bonds, and some of them, it's gonna be apportioned out over the 20-year time frame. But the reason for that was we knew that we were gonna have a certain amount of mitigation that we're gonna do to try to extend the life of the roads that are in okay condition. So we're gonna come in and do some mitigation, and we're going to do something to extend the life of that road so that it doesn't fail further. Because that's really the huge cost that we're looking at, is if we have a road that is in salvageable condition right now, but we don't have the money to actually fix it, we're gonna end up with a branding iron if we just continue to let it degrade. So what we're doing is we're gonna have a balanced approach of looking at mitigation of the roads that are in somewhat okay shape, extend the life of those roads as best we can. Because like I said, we're gonna be back here in a year or 2 years, and we're gonna be asking for more money to go out and get those roads fixed. It's gonna be a never-ending conversation that we have as a council and a city.
Well, I don't want to go on and on with this, because we got a lot of stuff to cover.
Let's make a motion that we accept it.
Well, this is just discussion.
No.
No, this is an action item.
It can be acted on.
So,
So again, explain to them, if they decide to table this tonight, what happens?
no, I don't either.
Oh, so do you understand that?
I mean, I understand, so I think we should just keep moving forward.
Okay, so what? This is item 7, number 7, item A or something.
7A.
7A.
So if you're gonna make a motion, just say, I make a motion to approve item 7A as written.
Okay, I make a motion to approve item 7A as written.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there going to be any other discussion? We've had a good discussion in several meetings. Okay, all in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, we have 4 that are for it and 1 opposed. And now we're going to move back up to,
Nick, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
You,
Okay, now we're going to go to A, discussion of staff and presentation regarding economic development by Glacier Commercial.
This is what you think. I don't know if you did that.
Where are we doing?
It's going to be A, 5, 4A. Had to think about our own numerals. 4A.
That's good.
so then that 7A is approved.
Yes.
And if you want to tell anybody right now, the way this looks, it's going to be May before they can start road construction.
We've got conversation on this later on today, so we're gonna talk some more about it. We had some COVID-19 unanticipated issues come in line, so.
That seems to be a common theme across.
Yeah, I'm getting retired of that conversation.
What the conversation, yeah.
Such a weak excuse.
You may put my mask.
Down there on this, we'll progress the.
Okay.
That's it.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, council members, councilor, and gallery. I'm Deborah Walls with Glacier Commercial Realty, and we are delighted to be here tonight. This is one of our owners, Andrew Beckman.
Hello.
founded our company, and my business card in there will say Irving, but we actually are based out of building a new office in Keller, so we're not too far away. And we have been working quite a bit in the Alliance market, pretty much from Roanoke going west. We work very closely with the city of North Lake, the city of Justin. We're delighted to get to know Ben and all of you. And as a commercial real estate company, we'd like to present to you what we feel that we can bring to this fine town and the benefits that it will bring to you. And so we're just going to go through to introduce you a little bit more to our company. And Glacier Commercial's been established for about 13 years. Steve?
22, but that's okay.
Oh, oh, okay, sorry about that. Yes, sir. Pardon?
May I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
What, do you know what the projected growth is from 35 west in this area?
As far as population,
Yes,
with all the
It's growing fast.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Probably from North Lake out to here, it's looking to be about 21 to 28,000 is what's expected,
Per year?
if not more. Oh, I'm sorry, not per year. No, that's about a 5 to 10 year time frame. Mm-hmm.
I saw in the Fort Worth Star Telegram, Sunday, or Friday, that the Mayor Betsy Price said that Fort Worth was averaging 20,000 people per year growth.
That's probably true coming into the Fort Worth area, yes. The city of North Lake, Justin, and New Fairview, that's the number that I was referencing. I'm sorry for that area, but it's true. I mean, so many corporations are moving here off the West Coast, off New York, for the quality of life as well as our tax benefits here. It's a business-friendly state, as we all know. So many are moving into this area, as well as people want to raise their children here, and it's just coming. And so the growth is here, and the Alliance area has developed so strongly with jobs. So that's good. And that being the case, that y'all are so close to that area that the housing is in demand, as well as what we're seeing just east of here in Justin. It's really exciting to see the development that's coming and coming in the right way. We're working with some of the wonderful residential developers that really care about doing it, to keep as much natural beauty as possible. So this is Andrew and Stephen. They're our founders and owners. About 50 years combined experience, and Andrew's expertise is in land development, industrial office, sales and leasing, and Steve's is medical office sales and leasing. Steve Strom does quite a bit of medical office. That's really his expertise. And myself, again, I'm working, my whole focus is the Alliance area. Andrew and I are working together on some projects, industrial projects, and again, working closely with the city. So as Ben and I, in our discussions, and as I get to know all of you better, really looking for what services are needed here on a commercial basis. And what we're really excited about is the housing developments that are in play, that are in the, they're growing here and in the process of developing because, growth in the Alliance area, there we go, getting ahead of myself, sorry. So as we just talked about, the corporations that are moving to North Texas, specifically Alliance. Well, Alliance is really set up as a logistics mecca, if you will, between the Alliance Airport, the railroad, and the highways. It's a lot of corporations are moving here for manufacturing as well as industrial distribution. So again, job creation. And then TxDOT, as we know, is expanding 407 out this way as well as 1171. So that's in the works and going to help with the growth. And then we just talked about the population growth expected. North Lake Justin coming out into this area is about 21 to 28,000. I've heard a variety of numbers, but I really feel like from what I'm seeing, we're probably going to experience that in the next 5 to 10 years. Commercial property benefits really can benefit New Fairview with a tax base. Unlike housing, we don't have exemptions in commercial. And we can really bring a good tax base to a city. And with the tax base, obviously, we'll create services for the city, as we were talking about. I heard, roads earlier, as well as police services, fire, and also to support the community from medical office to daycare to whatever, as the town grows with housing, what we can help bring on a commercial basis. And there we go. Anybody have any questions at this point?
Yeah, are y'all currently working with anybody in our city? I mean, we have a Constellation Lake that's not started, it's planned, and then I think tonight we're gonna have them talk about Sheep Ranch, so, those have the potential for commercial, industrial, blah, blah, blah.
We know Mr. Deitzer and have relationships with Mr. McGaslin, and so we're getting to know them, and where we can also complement their efforts on a commercial basis. And we met with a team from Sheep Ranch. We've been earlier, and we feel that we can really complement the residential developers.
So your literature says commercial, are you also industrial, manufacturing, et cetera?
Yes, sir. Industrial does fall under the umbrella of commercial, and Andrew especially has a lot of relationships with industrial developers. So we've done quite a bit in North Lake in industrial, and with your industrial section off 287, one of the biggest things for industrial is proximity to highways, and 287 running right into 114 is a good location for industrial. So that's going to be good. And then also to complement the housing developments that are going in. Obviously, as the community grows, you're going to need medical, doctors, dentists, maybe more churches and daycare, that type of thing. So as we look at New Fairview, as we look at really just in New Fairview, one of the biggest factors that can help support commercial development are rooftops. And that kind of is the first thing. And then, because as we want to bring clients to this area, especially like doctors, offices or whatever, they're going to want to know that the money they're going to invest in commercial to build their buildings is going to be supported by the community, that they're going to have enough patients, in retail, restaurants, or whatever, enough clientele to keep them afloat and prosper. So the density is really important for supporting commercial and for us to bring our clients here. And planning ahead is key. So as we look at this area on the acreage available, that the zoning and whatnot for commercial, there's great opportunity. We're really excited. We're very, very excited about New Fairview, and just like we do with North Lake and Justin, we really work closely with the city governments, because it's not what Glacier wants, it's what do y'all want? What's important to the city? What do the residential developers need to help support their efforts to make it just a wonderful place to live for the community? And so that is really its strategy. We work very closely in strategic, long-term plans. And one of the things that is really important for commercial is services, utilities. Industrial especially requires sewer and water services, enough for, obviously fire services. And so that is imperative to develop those type of businesses. So the infrastructure is really important, and I'm sure the density of the residential projects that are going on, that, I know like you can do the residential developments obviously on septic and on MUDs and whatnot, but it's for commercial, it's really gonna need to have that infrastructure of utilities. But what we're hoping is too, we know that that's a huge investment for a city, but we're hoping with the tax base and the tax return that it's really gonna help the the area prosper quite a bit. But again, it's a long-term strategy, and we're very interested, again, excited about the development. Rooftops that we mentioned that we need first, that's all in play, and it's just very exciting.
So how many rooftops before you get serious of bringing commercial over? I mean, is there a certain level of density or?
What's the alley?
Like 100 homes, 10,000 homes?
Well, retail is different than office and industrial, and that will happen first, probably. So limited services, places to shop. I don't know that exact answer. We don't really do retail. The industrial, however, and office, probably sooner than you think. But I guess the point is you have to have the infrastructure in place, and you have to know where you want it, have a plan. But to answer your question, how many rooftops for a grocery store or something like that, it's a lot. North Lake currently wants a grocery store really badly, and they're a lot bigger than you guys are, and they don't have one.
Yeah, they get Buc-ee's.
You got Buc-ee's.
Indeed, they do.
That's a good plus.
Some of the residential, as you approve some of these residential developments and they have a commercial aspect to it, it's really important to have them identify those sites, because that's what people, if there's no rooftops, people aren't going to be able to shop. So
No, I understand. That's why just if there was some kind of a measuring stick or something that you use to, okay, it's time to get on with Fairview and build a grocery store, put a bank in, or movie theater, or whatever. But it's.
what we're seeing in these smaller communities is that people are commuting into Fort Worth, into Alliance, and the office market is changing. So people are working from home, or they're working in smaller spaces. So I was mentioning to Ben earlier, out in South Lake and Roanoke, our company, we've been building and selling small office buildings to residents who don't want to commute anymore, who want to stay close, CPA firm, law firm, things like that. And so that's probably similarly what's going to happen here, I believe.
The infrastructure is the part that's key. That's one of the things that, again, with Justin and some of the projects that are good, strong options for industrial, they're also not challenged with the utilities and whatever, but getting that plan to the site is our developers that we know and that have really strong relationships with, that again can bring a lot of revenue to your town.
You're talking about an expense, and it's a huge expense to get water and sewer to a city, for a city, but that's not always the case, because 20 years ago, we had a company offer to come in and provide us with water and sewer, and we turned them down.
Oh.
I don't remember why, but we turned them down.
Probably this,
Well, Aqua has come to our meetings the last 2 or 3 years and said that but then there have been some different issues that have come up during the last 2 or 3 years.
Aqua's not surface water, or are they talking about?
Well, the surface water.
You gotta have surface water.
Yes.
Not well.
But they were talking about at that time putting in a sewage system. They came one night and made a whole presentation about it. They would put in the sewage and they would provide the water like they do in different areas. But I think that is what they found out at Constellation. And then whenever Peter Paulson put in Falcon Ridge, they had a lot of issues. They were not able to really meet the demand. And I think the water well at Falcon Ridge ended up costing $1.5 million. Does anybody know here?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
It cost $1.5 million just for that addition, for that one well. And it took quite a bit of time to get that done, and you had to get an extension.
Is that Trinity?
No, that was Aqua, oh, Trinity Water.
Aquifer,
Yeah.
it's the Biloxi and the Trinity.
So excuse this question, I'm just trying to be very clear here.
Sure.
So are you saying that you are wanting that to be in place, so you guys are thinking about coming here, or you're going to help put that in place to come here? Can you just clear that up?
Yes, we have no agenda here tonight other than to provide
Or what are you, okay.
our advice.
Let me jump in here real fast. So,
Did I jump ahead? I'm sorry.
No, that's a good question.
That's a
you
great,
jump ahead. I invited Glacier to come in, because we've talked previously, and they do commercial and industrial and.
But you need that in place
And I
before you.
want you guys to hear from people that are in the industry and people that actually do this, to understand what is required. What does the city of New Fairview have to have if we want that? You know, one of the things about this is everybody has told me consistently, we want to keep taxes low. There is no city that keeps low taxes that does not have an industrial or commercial component
I understand.
to their, so I want you guys to understand that. Now, part of having an industrial and a commercial component is you have to have infrastructure.
I understand.
So you have to have the water, you have to have the sewer, you have to have the
So
internet.
they're needing that before they come in.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So
I didn't know if you were gonna help.
But we're looking at options for that.
we are.
that's great.
So, you know, when we're looking at this, you know, when we're over dependent upon one type of revenue. So, you know, basically cities, you have property tax, you have sales tax, and you have fees of a variety of sources. You know, when the city was completely dependent upon sales tax, the state came in and changed the rules, and the city saw an 86% decrease in the only source of revenue they had. So if you're over dependent on property tax, or you're over dependent on sales tax, in 2008, you know, the economy tanked, and all of a sudden the cities were facing huge shortfalls, and they had to go in and cut services. The cities that did all right were the cities that had a fairly balanced revenue sources. They had fees coming in, they had sales tax coming in, and they had an adequate source of property tax. If you don't, then you're looking at making significant cuts in business services. Now, out here, we don't have a lot of services. It's really roads and a few staff members. But as you continue down this path and you bring in neighborhoods, or you bring in commercial, you're gonna have fire, you're gonna have fire protection, and you're gonna have some degree of police protection, you're gonna have some type of emergency services. Those usually take up 70 to 80% of the budget. So when you talk about having to make significant cuts because of an inadequate revenue source, you're talking about cutting in those areas. Those are the only places where you've got
Right.
big enough pockets of money
Right.
where you can make significant savings. So, you know, a commercial entity, they're gonna generate that sales tax revenue, they create a property tax revenue, which far exceeds, I mean, give me a rough idea, what is the average assessed value of your portfolio? Just middle of the range, whatever it would look like.
Well, 500,000, or say 100,000 foot warehouse would probably be assessed at somewhere around 15 million.
And that would sit on what size of the plot of land, you think?
Probably 20, 30 acres.
So 20 to 30 acres generating $15 million in tax base versus what we're getting right now. It's going to be a much larger tax base, more densely done. And the other thing about it is, we're talking about later on tonight, is this general exemption. Right now, you know, an exemption to a tax base is designed to push the cost of taxes off of residents or off of disabled or off of them to somebody else. We don't have any way to push it off of. So what we're talking about doing, if we put in an exemption, is just reducing the revenue stream to the city, because there's no one that's gonna be able to pick that up. There's really no.
But we have these big additions that are supposed to come. That's gonna make up for it.
They're residential, so they're going to get that same.
They're still huge.
No question that they're huge, they're gonna generate a lot of tax base. None of them are gonna start building until they have water and they have infrastructure out here in order to support them.
Falcon Ridge did.
Falcon Ridge, they put in their own infrastructure. So yeah, you can have that, and it's gonna take some time for that to catch up for the city. You know, from the time that they start and build, it's gonna be a year or 2 years before we actually see that on our tax books.
And I absolutely understand that. We can't do everything at once.
So I guess back to my original question. So in order for your company to come to, or your ideas, in order to come to New Fairview, you're going to need that already in place.
Well,
I mean, you're not
A
thinking.
plan in
about-
place, you don't have to go build every road, everything. The
If the water,
developer
the
will,
sewer, you're going
you'll
to
have
need
an
that.
agreement with the developer to negotiate all of those costs.
I mean, something like you got here at Shoe Brands, I mean, there's places there for some businesses, and maybe a warehouse or something.
if the developers know that there's a solid plan in place for those utilities that they have to have, I mean, it's a requirement for commercial, but for the industrial, which is really where you're gonna get your greatest tax base. As long as they know that there's a plan and that it's coming and it's a solid plan, not just, an idea. And as Andrew mentioned, we find that sometimes it's a combination of the city helping to finance it, the developers helping to finance it.
Correct.
It's a collaborative effort. But in order for us, because we have quite a portfolio of developers that we could bring to y'all, and honestly, land is in demand, you
Right.
know? And so it's one of those things where, we could, if you start getting that plan in place, that's where we can kind of say,
Okay.
okay, let's identify some property and make it happen.
I understand.
Like at Constellation Lake, we talked about having a grocery store there. Does Constellation Lake find their own grocery store? Or does the economic development, are you the one, are you the one that goes to the Walmart or to the, are you gonna be the go-between person between Constellation Lake and the businesses?
In some cases,
property.
yes. In some cases,
And
yes.
then if you get another business, you're gonna have to find the raw land
That's correct.
for them to go in.
That's correct.
And so are you gonna go like the Walmart and say, do you wanna put into this area and we will go find the land
Yes,
for you and then you can put that store in there?
that's correct.
And you're gonna be the representative that's gonna represent the city to go to the big businesses to get them to come in.
Or the landowner, I mean, we're a brokerage company, so, but the Walmarts, they have their own set of,
People,
well, yes, but
they're
there's
looking at the area.
criteria where they can put one.
But until we have a way, we're such a small town right now, and I would love to get clean water to some people who don't really have that. But until, I feel like we're jumping a step, so we're not ready for you yet.
Right,
That's right,
right.
we're out.
Yes, and we know it's
I was
long-term.
kind of, when I saw this, I was like, is this water cleans?
Oh.
And what is it gonna cost on the sales tax? Are you gonna add additional sales tax on products, pay them, or take it out of the present?
No, there is no, all the sales taxes is to take it. So the county has half of a cent and the city has a penny and a half.
That's to pay the economic development people.
Well,
And
for
that's the way it's
example, the
financed.
economic development, that's a separate deal. There's a number of different ways that we can use to incentivize. So we can do 380 agreements, we can do sharing of sales tax, we can do tax abatements. We have a variety of tools that we can use to go out there and try and incentivize and recruit people to come in. But again, that's a little bit down the road. What I'm trying to do right now is kind of lay the runway and let people understand what we need to have in place and how we get there. Because on the 15th, the feasibility study for that water and sewer system is going to be done. They're going to come in and present it to you. And I want you guys to have an idea of what is the relationship. If we decide not to go down that path of putting in infrastructure, then this goes away. So this is kind of like a path or a fork in the road, and the council has to make a decision, which fork are we going to take?
And to give you some information that I repeated over and over, but it amazes me. In 2000, we had 5.1 million people in DFW. 5.1 million in DFW. In 2020, we had 7.6 million. That was a 2.5 million increase in DF population during that time. And in 2000, we had approximately 17 million people in the state of Texas. Now we have 29 plus million. people in Texas. And now it seems that we're gonna have more people coming to Texas. But we kept looking at all the growth in the area, in Frisco, Allen, up and down 114 right now, and all these houses coming here. We look at the information that we get from Northwest ISD, and they've got bukus of that information right now because of the bond issue, trying to meet the needs of all the schools that they're putting into the area. So if we end up with another 2.5 million, it's amazing how many small Fairviews there are in the DFW area. Little towns pop up everywhere that we haven't seen before. Sunnydale or, you know, whatever, Shotgun City or whatever.
Gun barrel.
Yeah, but it's gonna come, but I also see a lot of towns, they hire somebody on the city staff to be the economic development person. And I didn't know if you wanted to be that person in the future, instead of us hiring someone. But then I also talk to the towns that have the economic development person, and they say, well, we're not getting any new businesses in, or we only get one. And a lot of times, a lot of people think, are we getting our money's worth out of that person? But there's so many things to go through. Am I on the right track?
Well, we're gonna have conversations. Like I said, this is an educational process. This is the first step. Over the next number of successive meetings, we're gonna keep coming back and talking about this. Part of it's gonna be looking at setting up some type of a economic development corporation or municipal development corporation. There's gonna be a number of different things that we're gonna be looking at as to how we create that toolbox that we can use to go out and try and recruit these. So yeah, they're gonna be a component to it. They're not gonna be hired by us, but they're gonna partner with us and work with
We'd
us.
like to help you.
We're gonna say, hey, this is what we'd like to have, and this is what we're willing to offer. And they're gonna go out to their people, and they're gonna say, hey, we've got a city that wants this, and this is what they're willing to offer. And if they have a person who wants to come to the table and have a conversation, then we sit down and we work it out. So we're gonna have a variety of people. We're gonna have a whole bunch of glaciers out there potentially on the other side that are gonna be looking at it. And
Oh,
part of
no,
that is
there's
just,
only one. I'm kidding.
part of that is just having a very clearly defined plan as to what we wanna have.
I've had more people in the last 2 months come to me and say, what in the world has happened on 114 between Texas Motor Speedway and Rome? And then they drive down County Line Road and they go, what? They're just amazed at all the cement that's been poured in the last concrete that's been poured in the last 2 years.
Mayor,
Please. Go ahead.
go ahead. I just want to say, you were talking about population earlier, you know,
Yes.
according to TML, which is Texas Municipal League, and Texas Cities, which is part of them, the population right now, Wise County is about 68 to 70,000 people. But within the next 10 years or so, it's going to go way over 100,000. We're talking probably 130 to 150,000, about 135. And according to the TML, here's what's happening. Interstate 35 goes from Brownville down there in the south, all the way up to the Canadian border. That's one of the major thoroughfares where they ship stuff everywhere. That's why it's growing so much here in Texas. Because, that's why it's according to TML, it's going to be growing west because it can't grow any further east because of Dallas and everything else already growing. So it's going to be growing west within 50 to 75 miles long of Interstate 35. And, you know, we have to get prepared for that.
Okay, they have gone. Thank you
very much.
Thank you. And then now we're gonna go to B.
Yes.
And then it's gonna be the discussion with the staff and presentation of the proposed concept plan for 1,806 acre Shoot Branch, and has been requested by the Rock Hill Capital and Investment Company. And then Barry Hudson, you're here too tonight. Great, Barry. And the people from this company. If you would, please come.
So we have OC and Jennifer both here from the development group. OC's gonna actually do the presentation, and if you have questions, they'll take them. I don't know if you want them to hold these questions till the end or jump right in. You tell us how you'd like to kind of proceed, but.
It's totally up to you guys. I will go either way. Mr. Mayor, Members of the City Council, my name is O.C. Best, here tonight representing Rock Hill Capital Investments. I do have Jennifer Alexander with Rock Hill with me tonight, and Kyle Salzman of LJA Engineers with us, who's helped with a lot of the research and documents and exhibits that we'll see here today. Been a lot of conversation about utilities, and we'll get to that at some point, but one of the first things I want to do is just share a little bit about the Sheep Ranch property itself. This is a short video, drone video of the Oliver Creek area of Sheep Ranch, which I think is an absolute environmental gem. And just wanted to, not sure how many people have actually been on the property to see this, so I want to share this short video with you.
No, Oliver Creek. Does it go through or just walk?
The thread.
Goes through.
Is that over off of Judge Road or whatever that is?
Yes. This is generally running from west to east along the creek.
Yeah,
Some high, some low shots, some back to the west. Low water crossing there. There's a couple of those. You can see the water quality, the rock outcrops along the edge. Just absolutely stunning.
Y'all gonna leave that undisturbed?
Yes.
Yes.
It becomes open space,
Yes.
basically park space for the city.
I knew that'd be the first question. Absolutely. This is a natural gem of a property. And as you'll see further in the presentation, our plans for that area. A lot of different looks, a lot of really incised areas, a lot of still deep water along the creek. It's truly amazing. Not something you would expect to see in this part of North Texas. You'd think you were in the hill country of Texas with something like this. Again, this property's been in private ownership for decades, and we suspect probably not a lot of people have seen
So
these
that creek that you're
videos.
showing in relation to that map is where?
right there. That is.
Pretty much the north end.
Yeah.
It is.
So it's not gonna have stuff built all in it and around it, like the river walk or?
No,
Looks like
ma'am.
it's got
No,
trees
ma'am.
all around it still.
So we spent a lot of time looking at the property and trying to understand, what are the characters about that make it special? The creek jumps out, that's obvious. But what about the edge conditions? What about how the property drains? What are the views associated with the property? What are the edge conditions? Who are the neighbors around the edge? And what kind of conditions do you have there? Do you have any fully developed subdivisions near the property? Those are the kind of things we're looking for to truly understand what's going on with the property today. We're also looking for inspiration. We're looking at other small Texas towns. Fredericksburg is a small Texas town now, bigger than New Fairview, but it's got a characteristic about it that I think is similar. Fredericksburg has a small urban core. That's where all the high-intensity uses are. Smaller lots for the restaurants, the shops, businesses, churches, schools. That's where all those things occur in Fredericksburg. As you get further away from town, the density drops down because more and more rural. We've all been there. It's a beautiful little town. But that's how that town grew up. It grew up from that core and grew out, like most small Texas towns. A lot of them were cotton towns. They were on the railroad. There'd be a cotton gin or a mill there. And the commerce is what created the little town, and then they kind of grew out from a core. Salina is an example here right in our own backyard. I mean, we're witnessing it today. But Salina still has that small, high-density core that makes it such a quaint little town that people just love. If you've ever been there, and you've been to Lucy's on the Square, you know what I'm talking about. It's a special place. It's not South Lake Town Center. It's a real small Texas town. It's authentic. But the same kind of characteristics are there. Small urban core, and then the density gets bigger as you get away from the center of the city. Another good example is Marfa. I don't know how many people have been out to the Big Bend area, but a great little town and similar kind of structure as far as center core. Density gets smaller and smaller as you go out. So we look at the Sheep Ranch and we say, gosh, we would love for New Fairview to have the same characteristics as all these really neat small Texas towns, but it's missing something. It's missing the middle. So what we think, and what we did is we dropped this master plan into the city boundaries, and I don't know if you can see it well enough on the screen there, but this is the Sheep Ranch. And then, of course, the darker brown is the city boundaries that go around the corporate boundary of the city, the lighter brown or tan being the ETJ. The other thing you notice about this is that the property is really kind of in the middle of all the major roadways, either existing today or future. FM 407, obviously the major east-west roadway through this area. US 287, obviously the biggest north-south roadway through this area. But look at what 2264 does. Provides great access from 114 all the way to Decatur. Great north-south roadway. There's also a proposed collector on the city's thoroughfare plan that would go through the middle of Sheep Ranch all the way over to 2264. And actually, it then jogs up a bit and it continues over to 287. Very strong east-west roadway at some point. I think we're all enjoying the access from 114 on South County Line Road. That road gets extended along the Sheep Ranch border all the way up to that existing FM in the future. It puts Sheep Ranch at the middle of a lot of major roadways, east-west and north-south. So to continue our investigation about the property, Kyle and his company with LJA helps us put together what we call the discovery maps. And what it does is it helps to understand what the property constraints are. It's a floodplain, gas wells, gas pipelines, all those different kinds of things that when you look at it, those are areas that you're probably not going to develop because they're already there and they already have a vested right. Sheep Ranch is a total of 1,800, it's actually 1,807 acres. But when you look at the net developable, it's only about 1,200 acres. Only about 66% of the ranch can actually be developed. This shows the city limits around the property, the ETJ. Another interesting thing about Sheep, if it needs to be more complicated, we're in two different counties. Here's the county line going right through the middle of the property, Wise County, Denton County. It's also bifurcated east-west by two different school districts, Decatur ISD to the north and Northwest ISD to the south. Fortunately, both very good school districts, so, but unusual to see that. The zoning today on the entire property is agriculture. The property was, the Wise County portion of Sheep Ranch was incorporated when the city did its original incorporation in 1973. The Denton County portion of it was annexed in 2010. And so, big gap there between the two annexations, but the property is completely within the city today. And when they brought the property into the city, they used a placeholder zoning, typically agriculture, which is the pink shading that you see there. We superimposed the property boundary over your future land use plan. What does that show? Well, the red bubbled areas are areas that are supposed to be more commercial in nature. Those are commercial nodes. And as you can see, that one of the commercial nodes is that North County Line Road and the East-West Roadway. Interesting. We think that's an important intersection as well. Also down at 407 and the intersection of the south leg of the property. another good location for commercial. Question I don't know that anybody has an answer to because I'm not sure why it happened, but the north side of the property above the creek was indicated as being industrial. Doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not sure why that was designated that way long time ago.
Do you know?
That was outside the city limits and the TJ at the time the comp plan was done. So,
Okay.
so basically Oliver Creek open space was sort of the limit of the comp plan.
Okay.
Excellent. So the future land use plan in yellow there shows the property primarily as being residential in nature. This is the water service CCN. You can see the Aqua Texas CCN boundary there in light blue to the south. So there's a very small piece of the Aqua CCN on the property down that very lower corner. This is a little map, a little hard to read, but it's topography and floodplain. But what's really important, I think, to understand is this green line is a ridge line. So when you're on 407 looking at the property, it's that first ridge you see as you look north. There's also a major ridge line to the north and several major ridge lines to the west that really create what I call the Oliver Creek Valley. The property really sits down in a valley area that's not visible from very many places. But you can see there's a lot of topography, especially along Oliver Creek and the tributary to Oliver Creek towards the south. So based on all those constraints and this vision of creating a new Texas town, the center panel is the entire property, 407 on the south, this north side, this county line road going north. This is the major east-west roadway that will connect eventually over to 2264 and ultimately 287, goes through the middle of the property. The idea was to create a center of the town for New Fairview that's located in the center of this project. And that would contain a new city hall, city library, fire station, maybe a grocery store, maybe a drugstore, a lot of village retail in that area. It becomes the center for where social, business, and government occurs in New Fairview. I'm going to show you some more detail on that here in a minute, but the panel to the left is just a blow up of the north side of that, make it a little easier to read, and the panel to the right is a blow up of the south side of that. One of the numbers that really jumps out on this property, again, if you look up the land use summary table on the left-hand panel, is open space is 707 acres on 1,800 acres. That's about 35% of the site. That's a huge percentage of open space for a project of this size. To break that down even further, the single family is about 51% of the land area, only half. The flex use, a lot of people call that mixed use, which would be the multifamily, retail, commercial, civic uses, comprises about 64.5 acres or 3.5%. We believe there's 2 schools in this project. Go back to the map. Again, we've got a school on the north side for the Decatur ISD and an elementary on the south side for Northwest ISD. We have not talked to the school districts. Yes.
Going back to the comment you made a while ago about putting that complex in the middle of the property, that's going to be about 1.5 miles from 407 to the south, correct?
That's about right.
And 1.5 miles to the north. And all the people that live in this area can go to the center of the town without going out on 407 to do their shopping and their store purchases. So he's building a city in the city, a shopping area in the middle of the city. So when people come back home at the end of the day, from whichever direction they come, they don't have to congest the traffic out on 407. They can go to that area. Constellation Lake has basically the same thing. right? Where people can go to your grocery store area and shop right there without getting on 407 or South County Line Road. Good to see you tonight.
Good to see you.
The idea is that the two uses can be compatible and they should complement each other. Going back to the vision image, you know, the higher density project of Shoe Branch doesn't affect the rural nature of the rest of New Fairview. They actually complement each other. And that's the idea. If we do it right, there's connectivity, as the mayor said. If you want to go to town center, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. But there's going to be a lot of things there that I think a lot of people would think would be attractive.
Is all, you said residential is 1%, is all residential tiny lots?
Is what, I'm sorry?
Small lots.
Smaller lots, smaller than 1 acre, yes, sir.
What's that?
Everywhere from a estate lot, and I'll show you an example of those. If you look in the middle panel again, here's an area on Oliver Creek. This is it's a small area, but it's an area where the floodplain gets real narrow. So you can get residential development closer to the creek and closer to a relationship with that. And we think there's probably a gated community there that would be, you know, pretty high end, pretty big lots and pretty high end, exactly. The product ranges on the rest of the lots is everything from 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, all the way up to a half-acre lot. So the idea with, 1,800 acres is to have a wide range of diverse products. That's what makes a community sustainable. You can't have one widget over 1,800 acres. It has to be diverse. But that's what makes it strong, and that's what makes it resilient, and that's what makes it sustainable in the future. Schools, again, those are the two school sites. Thoroughfares, count for almost 100 acres. There'll be a lot of amenity centers and community parks, and we'll talk about that here in a minute, but you can see, probably 90 acres of amenity centers and community parks in just this development. Some of those would be private, but some of those would be public as well. Some would be private, open to the public. So a lot of opportunities there for people outside the development to come in and enjoy that. The open space, this is your floodplain drill sites, it's the pocket parks, etc. 607 acres, 35% of the property. That also includes Oliver Creek. And again, I think Oliver Creek is the absolute gem to this whole property. And the idea here is that everybody in the city of New Fairview would be able to enjoy it. It wouldn't just be a private landowner. Over 13 miles of trails, and these are just the major regional trails that connect schools and shopping and neighborhoods and parks. There'll be a lot more, even smaller neighborhood trails that would connect to that. And then if you look at the gross single-family density, which I know is important, that we're right at 2.2 units to the acre. These are some character shots of what we believe the town square could look like. The big picture on the left, this is the civic building, town hall, library, if you will. The town green out in front of that, a small kiosk building that could be a coffee shop, it could be something like that, a meeting place. And then you see the smaller neighborhood retail shops as they come around and line the space. But this is where the 4th of July festival happens, the chili cookout happens. All those great things that make a small town a fun place to live. Here's a blow up of that town's center area. The town hall and library, fire station, across from each other on the major east-west roadway. A retail, probably a drugstore there. Hope to be able to land a small footprint grocer. There's a lot of that kind of product now with the new way of how people shop. Grocery stores are extremely downsizing their footprints. Neighborhood retail. Here again, it's important that all these buildings face the street and have street frontage like this, so that you have this public space in front of the buildings where people like to go and they like to get a coffee, get a hamburger, an ice cream or something, and visit with their friends. The thing to see here is you don't see the field south of that, but here we're talking about a community amenity like a pavilion center, like the one shown here in the middle and top, is again kind of a great place for the community to have their events or to even lease out for private events. But that space between the community amenity and the village shops, that street, I mean, we call that Festival Street. We believe that's the street you block off when you have the parades and the festivals and all the street vendors and all the fun things that go along with it. It's basically a new 150-year-old town center.
So basically what, down that area, you're gonna have trees and everything else, correct? What about, benches and stuff like that, so the old folks can stand down there and wait at each other?
That's why we put together these character sketches, is to show you, we don't have construction plans to show you.
Yeah, I know, I just.
But you see the benches on the street over here? I mean,
Yeah.
lots of places to sit down.
And go over there,
So this is just a concept, right?
This is our vision for the Shoot Ranch.
So you don't actually have lot sizes yet, or you do?
We've discussed lot sizes of probably 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and half-acre lots.
40 what? 40 foot?
40-foot wide, that'd be the lot width, 40, 50, 60, 70,
Small.
and half-acre.
Right.
What it allows builders to do, it allows builders to
Inside.
hit a price point.
Some people don't want it.
I mean, there's a lot of home buyers today where price point is a whole lot more important than a big yard. So the idea here is to provide something that's affordable for everyone. You hear a lot of talk about affordable housing. Well, we need affordable housing, we need affordable housing. Well, affordable housing means different things to different people. It depends on how much money you make.
So
So
then, tonight, this is the concept plan.
This is
that
just,
he's worked on.
this is discussion, you guys ask questions, make comments, we're gonna continue working on, the project and bringing it forward as additional things. There'll be one item on here to take action on, but it's related to a reimbursement agreement for professional services.
And then it will go to the planning and zoning, and it will go to the city council, or at this time.
It's gonna go to
city
it's gonna go to the council, just simply from the standpoint of the timing.
And during that time, we can have those discussions.
Just the
For the discussion of going through the process, basically, you're saying, what does the lots gonna look like, all that type of stuff, what we're gonna ask for tonight is for you guys to approve the agreement where they reimburse us for the cost of Bradley and, Barry, and we already have one for Barry, but Bradley and our engineering and everybody else, so that they're paying for the cost of the review of the plans. We're gonna ask for you to basically give me permission to negotiate a plan district, which would be a zoning ordinance for this development, to start the process of setting up and negotiating what a PID would look like for the infrastructure to put in this type of development. And then also a development agreement, which kind of ties all of the components together, which gets into the level of potential detail saying, hey, if you're gonna put in a smaller lot, then we wanna see a higher end home, which means we wanna see an average price per square foot of X, and we want to see these types of components built into those structures. So we'll work to put together something that gets us a good quality, quality product that still accommodates the ability for them to do it. Because when you're talking about this again, when we talk about that water infrastructure that we're wanting to bring in, I'll just tell you, the rough draft, I'm still looking at the numbers on it, but I mean, it's $50-60 million to bring water to New Fairview. So if you're thinking that you're gonna get that with 1,000 homes or 500 homes, there's no way. You're talking about $1 million a house to just get the water here. So it depends on what the city wants to have. We really want to have that infrastructure here. We really want to have a sustainable, good water source for the next 50 years, next 100 years. Those are the things that we're going to be weighing when we have these conversations moving forward.
And they agreed basically on 300 feet setback.
Yeah, so, well, let's.
Is he gonna get to
Sure.
that?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
finish going through this.
I've only really got a couple more slides to show
I
you. I
just
know
wanted
this
to
is
make
been long.
sure Steve understood that he would have a chance later to talk about the house lot side.
Yeah.
Well, and the setback, the well setback.
Okay.
That's very important to people who are gonna live there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we totally agree. And the gas well setback that we're using for our plan right now is 300 feet. This is some images of what the front entry would look like. And again, what was important was, what are you going to see of the Shoot Ranch from FM 407? Well, this is what you would see. You won't see a lot of rooftops because they're mainly over the ridge line and down the Oliver Creek Valley. That's really what we're trying to show here. I think the landscape architects did a great job of showing what these images would be. This is a line of sight, and the top one is cut north-south through the property. So you see FM 407 on the left side. This is where you can see the Oliver Creek Valley, and the line of sight as it goes over the top ridge, you don't see down into the property. Likewise, in a section east-west, looking from FM 2264, the line of sight hits that top ridge, and you don't see any part of Shoot Ranch from FM 2264. This is something that we thought is important because city councils make decisions not only based on lifestyle and the things that you love to see, but also it has to make sense financially. And if you look at the total AV, total assessed value column next to the right, you see that at build out, all the way at the bottom, total residential and commercial together, $1.3 billion worth of value for a project of this size. Probably takes 20 years to build out. But an annual city property tax collection at your 30-cent rate of a little over $4 million a year. That's about an 800% increase over where you are right now.
And the multifamily? Do you have apartments?
We think there's a need for some rental product. Now, would it be multifamily? Would it be apartments like we normally think about apartments, or a townhouse for rent, or even single family for rent? But we think it's important for a project of this size to have some rental product, because if somebody moves here from another state, they need a place to stay, to rent while they explore the area and decide where they want to live. So it's not a big piece of the community, but it is something that's necessary to really round out all the products.
800 units, 800 apartments?
That's just a rough estimate right now.
So 40-foot lot, are we talking a 1,600 square foot home or less?
It's really hard to build a single family home that's less than 1,600 square
I
feet.
know.
I mean,
That's why I'm
I
trying
guess
to
you
get a feel,
could.
what size are these homes?
Otherwise, it's
So
not.
even for 275K, there's, the price per square foot.
And it's 40 by what?
I mean, it's easy to build a 1,800 square foot, 2,000 square foot home on a 40-foot lot.
Are they 80 feet deep?
I'm
Are
sorry?
they 80 feet deep?
That was that.
40 feet by 80?
Typically, the 40s and 50s are about the same depth. They're 110 to 120 feet deep. A lot
So
of
it's
the
gonna be
40,
40 feet wide and 110 feet.
Well,
110 or 120 feet deep,
how
yes.
can, unless there's zero lot line, we're not gonna have zero lot line.
It could be zero lot line. It could be. Or it could be a traditional side yards on both sides. There's pros and cons to both sides.
Right.
Yeah.
Where's West property care for?
A lot of the good 40-foot product is also alley loaded. It's rear loaded. That gives you a really nice street scene, so you don't have as much garage door to look at. But there is some attractive 40-foot front loaded product out there. So I could see a mix of that. The 60-foot lots are probably about 120 to 130 feet deep. 70-foot lots are usually about 140 feet deep. And then estate lots are your typical half-acre lots, 90 by 180, 90 by 200.
you guys are probably gonna wanna really be in the meetings on the lot sizes. In other words, you wanna be more active in this than a brand new planning and zoning committee. The planning and zoning can learn on this. But if you wanna move forward with this quicker, we'll talk about that later.
We'll have some conversation on that.
Here's the key things to look at, and this is why a diverse range of product types is important. What's the finished home value column in the middle? 40-foot lots, that home lot combination, probably around 275,000. Could be a little lower, could be a little higher. 50-foot lots around 300, 60-foot lots 325, 70-foot lots 350, half-acre product, or probably up in $500,000. So that's why the product segmentation is important to a community this size.
What's an estate lot? Is that where they might have the gated community?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's what we're thinking. And this is just a great shot
I'm
of,
sorry, 250,000 is higher district to me.
and this is just a great shot down on Oliver Creek, the kind of lifestyle that people that live out in New Fairview could enjoy. I mean, what an opportunity.
I'm gonna get bit by snake.
That's a great presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
It is, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. It is.
It is.
I'm not working on that.
We're moving forward with the project as quickly as we can go, and any feedback you can give us would be greatly appreciated, good, bad, or ugly. I mean, we really need to know.
We talked a little bit, this council talked a little bit about your property, and I know Ben's been talking to you about the setback on the wells. 300 feet is not much. If we up that setback, how does that affect you?
You're just taking away developable property that could provide property tax revenue to the city. I mean, it's kind of self-defeating.
But you're talking about all this open space, and the open space is partially because of the well.
That's correct.
Et cetera.
That's
So,
correct.
Steve. Chance. You know, we've been talking to DKB, the operator of the wells that are out there right now.
Yes.
And they're gonna come back and work with OC. There's gonna be some where it's appropriate for us to have some increased setbacks, but they're happy to increase
Okay,
setbacks.
that's discussable.
Yeah.
Is Chance in here?
Yes.
With the mask on, I don't know where he is. Oh, okay.
We've got a lot of these images on the wall also, if you just want to take a look at those. Again, any feedback that you could give Ben that he could relay to us would be greatly appreciated.
Very, very nice.
We're moving as hard as fast as we
You've got
can.
some good artists. They really-
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Barry here, our planner. Do you guys have any questions for Barry?
Barry, tell them what part you play in this.
What part have you played in this?
Yes.
At this point, I've been involved in a couple of preliminary meetings with the property owners, and then also looking over the master plans. I did have the opportunity to look at the presentation over the weekend, and I'm really very impressed. You know, I mean, 35% of the property being held in open space is very important, I think, you know, for the community. You know, I know that there's several things. You know, you've already heard the presentation on you need rooftops to get commercial and retail, but this is a great way to do that. You get more rooftops by clustering the development instead of having blanket 1 acre lots or blanket half-acre lots even. You know, by clustering it, you get all this open space that everybody can enjoy. You preserve the floodplain of Oliver Creek, and then you have these pocket parks. Now, granted, some of the open spaces they're showing are gas well setbacks, but still it's open space, and those gas wells will not be there forever. You know, a lot of those are vertical wells; they're not directional drilled wells, and so there's an opportunity for that. So one of the things that I think Ben was working with the developers on is that there are quite a few what are called sort of single loaded streets. A typical developer will double load every street in there, because that cuts the roadway costs in half because you have houses on both sides. The advantage of a single loaded road is that particularly that north-south spine road, you sort of have open space on either side. And again, a lot of that open space is going to be some gas well setbacks, but some of that is our community parks, pocket parks and things. So that spine road is going to give you something, a real good feel as going through the topography of the site. So, yes.
Tell how many gas pads there are on the property.
I believe there's 37 gas pads and 70 gas wells.
I got one.
Okay. So there's, yes,
What is the state minimum on setback? 100, 150 or something, 200?
most of the gas well regulations in the state of Texas are all oriented to building gas wells around existing development. And so typically, there's a lot of gas pads in the city of Fort Worth. It's the fire code that regulates the setback for new development around gas wells, existing gas wells.
Okay.
So,
So the state doesn't have them.
Well, the fire code is there.
The
and
fire
code is 150 feet.
150 feet, that's right.
yeah, and it varies with uses. I mean, there's protected uses like
So
like
doing
churches.
300 is twice what the fire code. So that's pretty safe.
Well, again, it depends on your use, places of assembly, schools,
Well, I'm just trying to get that up so that the people who are listening in can understand it. That the state does have a minimum, or the fire code has a minimum of 150 of them. And they're doing 300s, and they're doing double what the fire code is, which means that they're concerned about the safety of the citizens and everything in that area.
Yeah. So
That's what I'm trying to.
if you're looking at a incident, say one of those gas wells were to explode, generally speaking, 300 feet would be considered a adequate distance.
Right.
Um,
I've seen
150
those
feet would be the minimum level to look at, that we've got at 300 feet. And it also gives the ability for us to have enough space to get heavy equipment in it. So if there is an incident, health and safety has to respond. These wells are operated, which means we have to allow them to get their large equipment in and out to rework the wells if they need to drill a new well.
I can tell you from experience that these companies who go into these gas wells and do the type of fracking, they could probably get all their trucks and everything in there within 50 feet. Because I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
But ultimately, what we're looking
I
at
live
is every well is about 6.5 acres of open space that the city can take advantage of. And in this development, I've already talked to Jennifer Nossi, and I told them you're gonna have to move a lot of dirt. And so my vision and what I'm gonna try and talk to them about, and I'll bring it back to you, is basically when you're driving on that northwest or that east-south or east-west, north-south corridors, either one, that we put berms up around these well sites. So when you're driving on the road, you don't even see any gas wells in this entire
Well,
development. It'll look like this.
They or fencing it.
Well, no fencing, we're gonna try and use vegetative screening, we're gonna try and use berms to make it look like it's really nice and looks good.
Yeah.
They have to do something with the dirt anyways, so we might as well make it look as good as we possibly can.
And in case of any type of overflow that comes out of the protection area around the retention and everything, the berms and everything will stop.
Well, we're, and like I said, we've got all the different people up to the table to have those conversations, and we're gonna work that out, and figure out what it looks like. Some of them might take a
No,
little
I
bit.
understand, I just want everyone who's listening in to understand what we're doing is for the safety of the people there and everyone else.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit more about the last one there, how you've helped to fund water sewer to the recs? What we're gonna get is a lot of feedback, I know some of us here will, about the people who have been here for a long time, like myself. We've been going on for 27 years.
Yeah.
There's things that there's part of the town that's not gonna be this nice, the other side of the tracks, that need things. water, sewer,
Yeah.
things like this. I'm trying to word this correctly, how can we benefit the ones who are long timers? So how do we bring this to them, because they're of the mindset that the city is acre lots, period, not apartments, not 40, that sort of thing. How would you present this to people who have been here, voted all of us in on certain rules, if you
Yeah.
might say, like acre lots? So we say, okay, well, the give and take of it is maybe we'll get water to the people who need it.
So my background is architecture and planning. I'm not an engineer, although I work with an engineering company. But still, you need those rooftops to pay for the extension of water and sewer.
That's how this will benefit the rest of us.
Yes. So one of the things is that, you have a fire department, volunteer fire department, but you have no fire protection, by getting a water system here, you'll be able, this chute will have fire protection, with a public water supply. And that can benefit and can be expanded.
And where's their water source?
I think that the water study is looking at 2 or 3 different sources.
So we're not talking about wells, we're talking about.
It would be,
Surface
yes,
water.
yeah, surface water for that's Upper
And that will
Trinity
help
or
get
City
it to
Fort
the other
Worth.
side of 2264.
Yeah, so, but that would,
Is that right?
but
That will help get water to the other side of 2264.
eventually, yes.
Eventually.
And what Ben has shown in the past is the fact that the ASCII property and the man property is going to go all the way over to 264, connecting with this in the future. And that water line, remember in the meetings in the past, we just talked about that. But then we've also talked about getting the different developers together to work together to get the surface water into this whole.
So let's say how long this gets
Every
started, so we can look
development, every
forward to that.
developer that's willing to contribute to surface water sewer is less cost to the city.
Correct, and that's what we're gonna be working with them on.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they have to have surface water to make this development work. And right now, so it's Constellation Lakes. So between the two of those, we're gonna come down, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna have a conversation, we're gonna hammer it out with the numbers, find out what's that cost be. Now, Two Branch is gonna say, well, we need a X number of water, and that's gonna fit in a pipe of this size, and that's what we need. What the city's gonna be looking at, you guys are talking about how do we benefit the existing citizens, we're talking about right sizing the pipes, which means we're gonna increase the size to have more flow so we can serve other people. And also, we want to be looking at the next 10 years, the next, people that are going to be coming to the table, but we're going to still need to provide those water services for. So we're going to be looking at how do we fund those short-term needs as well as those little bit longer-term needs. And that's all going to be part of the conversation that we have. Those will be part of the things that we bring forward to you, because those are going to be part of my negotiations that I have with the developers.
And as they reminded us in the meeting, they have already contributed to a fund, and we've already hired a group to study the water
Yes,
situation.
so that's going to be
Explain
presented.
that again.
So Rock Hill and Bloomfield Homes both participated in helping to pay for this feasibility study for water and sewer. We've got the draft. I'm asking questions of the draft right now. We're going through and doing some updates to make sure that it's ready, and then we're going to have that for presentation for the February 15th meeting, so that we can have it before the discussion.
And that was about, what, 25,000 that they invested in?
Yeah, I think it was around $20,000, give or take a little bit. I think they split up half of it, and the city contributed around $5,000 for that as well.
So, Mr. President, if we approved you today, when would you start on this project?
The real critical path is going to be water. It'll be.
So you're not going to do anything
option
else?
they have here with us. Which option the city decides to go. I think, like we talked with the city manager earlier, probably really 2 good wholesale providers available to you, maybe 3. And each one have their own costs.
Surface water, right?
And their own, yeah, all surface water. But they're all going to have their own timing and their own costs. And so all that has to be weighed. Could it be 2 years, as quick as 2 years? Possible. That's pretty aggressive. But yeah, I think development will be waiting for water back.
Okay. Is that what Constellation Lake's waiting on? Thank you, Barry.
Appreciate it.
Don, do you have anything to add about the water at this time? I just put you on the spot.
This is me.
This is Don Dykstra.
I've had the privilege of meeting many of you. I've met some of you sitting in audiences at prior city council meetings. I'm Don Dykstra, I'm with Bloomfield Homes. We own the property at Constellation Lake or with Royal Crest. And you've seen us proceed, Ben McCaslin's here too, with the Paloma Ranch project, which I'm also part of. And we're proceeding ahead with those 1 acre lots because we can do them with aqua water, but it won't have the fire protection that we need to do the higher density. And we can do the 1 acre with the septic. But to do production homes, like if you've been to Justin up on north of town on 156 Timberbrook, that's one of our developments. And you've probably seen the presentation we did on Constellation Lake too. And we're working with the city with funding that. Whether the city sets up its own CCN, whether there's we were able to, because we sit kind of right on the city limit line, so we're a little bit different situation, and we may be able to just source it with Justin water as opposed to a solution for all of New Fairview, which would still get you the tax base, gets water a lot closer, we'd be building an elevated storage tank in all probability on that property. But yeah, we need to figure out water and sewer go together. I mean, they're really both an issue. So, but one, I realize it's an extremely difficult issue, and I appreciate the time you're putting into it. But we do believe in New Fairview. That's why we're participating with park improvements, some of the other stuff. I mean, you're going to see us here for a long time, and glad to be part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Joe?
Okay. Is that all on bid?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have any questions, things you want me to follow up with, or you can send me emails after the fact.
No, I think one of the big pluses, he said that he was showing us that you wouldn't be able to see houses from 407, and that's a big thing, is that people drive by and see kind of lots.
Still gonna be, have the world.
Yeah, you can't see it, yeah, if you got it. That's cool, yeah, that's a big plus. Okay.
Okay, Mayor, next item on the agenda is just giving you an update on the streets project. So tonight we approved the sale of bonds, so we're going to continue to move down the path, move the streets completed. The surveyors have been in the city, completing the survey for the roads that are scheduled to be improved. We've had two that are teamed down with COVID. They kind of infected each other, I guess. So the engineers, Pacheco and Coke, have said that may delay the delivery as much as 30 days. I've asked them to find out what they can do on their side once they receive the surveys to add more people to the design and engineering team so that they can cut some of that delay out of the process for us. But they're hoping to get the updated numbers, and I'll forward those out to you guys as quickly as I can. But if it really does take 30 days, then that puts our construction timeline to May instead of the March, April timeframe. So we're going to push it as fast as we can, but at the same time, until we have those construction documents completed and we've got them out for bid, we're not really able to move forward on that. Now, one of the things that they did mention is if we can break it down into smaller projects. Breaking it into smaller projects means that we're going to use up a fair portion of dollars in mobilization fees. So we want to try and keep this as a single package that we send out, we did one time, and we only pay that fee one time versus paying multiple. The other thing is we've got a Joshua, he's going to be coming on board and working for us to kind of pick up where Jamie left off. So hopefully next week, he will be going out into Hilltop, and he'll start to work on those drainage issues that we have, start working with residents, meaning, basically we're going to start off by putting notice on everybody's door, letting them know, hey, your culvert has been identified as an area where we've got a drainage issue that needs to be resolved. These are the options, call us, let us know what you'd like to do. And we'll be following up with them to make sure that we get those things taken care of as quickly as we can, so we can be ready for when the road repairs are coming.
So is he an employee or?
No living contract for now. We're gonna be bringing him in at a much lower rate than what we were paying the previous gentleman. If this is kind of my try before I buy, if he does work out, and I may be coming back to you and asking you to convert this to a full-time position. But we've got the money in the budget for it, because of the savings as what we were gonna pay versus what we're gonna be paying him. So we'll see how that goes down the road, but, we're gonna try, make sure that everybody likes each other before we get married.
So you said Hilltop, but earlier we talked about branding iron being our top priority.
Well, it's Hilltop, Brandon Iron, and Chicken Trucks. We're gonna be working in that entire
They
area.
were working over there today, and I talked to two of the gentlemen, the other ones, and they said that they were finishing up the cleanup, and they probably have it in about 15 days.
Yeah,
Well,
so we're-
okay, say we could do a road tomorrow. Is it branding iron? That's my question.
Yeah, Brandon Iron's one of the roads we're gonna do.
They'll be starting
Is that the
tomorrow.
first road? That's the question.
No, Steve, there's no answer to your question right now, because we're going to have the crew come out, and we're gonna have the professionals determine if we do Brandon Iron first, then that's great, but they're gonna come out and say, based upon the workload that we have, it makes more sense for us to start here.
But Ben, didn't we hire these guys nearly a year ago?
We're not talking about the engineers, we're talking about the construction crew. Just like when you're building a house, you let the people that are building the house come out and say, this is the order of what we're gonna do. When we get the construction crew out here, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna identify, these are the streets that need to be repaired, and they're gonna build a plan of action for us. And we're gonna have to work that out, because when we take and tear one of these roads down, everybody that's going in and out of that road is gonna have access, we're gonna have to come up with plans. So they're gonna work with us to develop plans to make sure that we're putting in place appropriately.
Okay, can we go to, new business B to finish up that with the sheep ranch?
Can we just work our way through the discussion items and then?
I'd rather go ahead and get that done. Aren't they still here?
Well, you guys, yeah, go ahead, let's go ahead and take it if you like.
Yeah, to get them out.
Are you, yeah, I mean, I think that's,
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna go to B, new business, discuss and consider, you can read it. I don't need to read the whole thing right. And everybody has an agenda here. Picked up one at the door, so we're at B, go ahead.
So what this agreement outlines is it provides, their group is gonna, they've got a check with them tonight for $50,000. That $50,000 is going to deposit. We will use those proceeds to pay for the review of Barry, Bradley's time, anybody else professional services wise. As we get those invoices, we'll be able to pay them out. So the city will not be on any, there'll be no cost to the city to go through the process of, developing the paperwork and the documents and doing the plan review for the city. So what we're talking about is doing that, and then also authorizing me to direct staff time to develop a plan district zoning ordinance. So we'll go through that process of what that looks like, what they're going to be wanting to bring back to the city. And then also to set up a, paperwork and the documents for a public improvement district. And then whatever the development agreement looks like. Now, because it's in the city limits, it's going to be, I think, probably a little different than what we've done in the past, but we're going to come back with an agreement that outlines what the obligations of the developer would be if we approve these zoning ordinances and we approve them.
right now, we're talking about no cost to us.
No cost to us,
And the bid applies only to that subdivision.
only that subdivision.
Okay. I make a motion that we accept, item, 7B as written.
Do we approve?
Approve, what I say.
Accept.
I'm sorry, approve.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, no more discussion on B. All in favor? Okay, anyone opposed? Okay, unanimous. Okay, then the next item, let's see. Okay, let's go to, are there any of the firemen here? Do you want to talk about the firemen?
There are no firefighters here tonight, I don't see.
Okay, there aren't any firemen here right now, okay?
We do have,
Yeah, we do.
oh.
Yeah.
Um,
But we have Chance Wilson.
We do have a chance here, so if you guys want to move that, we can go there.
Okay, let's go ahead.
So we jumping,
Yeah, where we
We're on D in new business. And what this has is about annual safety.
Are we not, we're not in work session anymore?
we're skipping.
Well, we've got somebody here in the audience that's has an interest in this ordinance, so.
All right,
I like the way we're taking care of them.
yeah,
I do, that's courteous to, if people are here for a certain item, we
I
should let
agree.
them go.
So this ordinance basically, if you look at the packet, establishes the, how would you describe it? Not the right, we already have the right, establishes the authority for the city to enforce public safety and health. And basically what we're looking at is the implementation of safety inspections for commercial operations. Now, the only thing that's different from the packet that you guys saw, which outlined the different areas, is we were in conversations with Chance, and he came forward with some additional language that he wanted to add to the ordinance. Bradley and I both reviewed it, and basically what it's doing is defining the timeline to cure. If something comes up, they wanted to know clearly how much time do we have for you guys to notify us, and what do we need to do in order to get it taken care of. We're comfortable with the change in that ordinance. So this would be the language that we would want to add to that, which basically just says if there is any type of a failure, to the extent that it's required to cure, in no event, however, shall the cure period be less than 15 days. So we're basically saying we give you 15 days to make a remedy on anything that would be found in violation of the safety.
That's assuming that it's not a life-threatening issue.
Well, if it's a life-threatening issue, then we will definitely be on it. But, you know, for the most part, what we're talking about is we're gonna go out there, we're gonna see something, and we're going to notify them, and we're gonna give them a period of time that's adequate to respond. If it's a life-threatening issue, then I'll be on the phone with him, and he'll be out there getting it resolved.
Our volunteer fire department is going to do these inspections?
So we're gonna work right now with Rob Weatherby. He's the gentleman that set up the inspection program for the city of Benton, and he's also the one that does the inspections currently for the city of Decatur. On the hydrocarbon wells, we're gonna be looking at the other business entities. We'll be looking at some different people to do those inspections from the standpoint of, you know, are they doing fire code, are they doing fire codes, you know, safety requirements inside of buildings, commercial enterprises. So we'll be looking at a different variety of them. But yes, you know, one of the things we talked to the fire department about is them taking on that role. They're gonna be the ones that have to respond if there is an incident that
You have
occurs.
people that are trying to do this?
No, that's, we talked about.
But that's the thing, is they need the training, they need the equipment, they need the gear, and right now they don't have it. So they're the ones that are gonna have to be responding to it, and that's where, you know, what we're looking at right now is building the budget around what the cost of operations to do this inspection process will be, as well as looking at capital needs for what we need if we were to have to respond to some type of an incident.
So we don't have a cost for this?
This right now is granting the authority. In the March meeting, what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring forward an update to our fee schedule. This just references that there will be a fee established. When we bring in that fee schedule, it'll show you the checklists that we're gonna be working on. It's gonna show what the fees are associated with doing the inspections. And those are gonna be based upon actual budgeted dollars that we're anticipating
We're
spending.
going to look at what other cities
Right.
municipalities charge for
Yeah.
this service.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, with the way it's written here isn't the way it was written in my information, maybe the additional information I had, because it gave a fee about how much money it was gonna provide,
Well, so we're gonna bring back the fee schedule in the,
because in the original agenda that I got, it said 400,000.
well, it does say that.
And
It
you
says,
did take that out of this.
no, it's still in the agenda packet. It's not in this. We
Okay.
said in that same thing where it said $400,000, it says we're not bringing forward a fee schedule until March 1st. So March 1st is when we would anticipate seeing that schedule updated for you guys to review.
And it also said that they would be checking all businesses on a yearly basis.
All 12 of them.
Well, but I mean, the future.
Yes, absolutely. This establishes that authority for the city to start doing those inspections.
And who would be doing those?
So one of the things we've been talking to the fire department about is establishing a fire marshal role. and we have a firearm.
Part of the reason that you had this worded as, pardon me, adopting an annual safety inspection program to require an annual safety inspection for operators that present a risk of dangerous incidents and establishing a fee for the inspection. Okay, so you didn't put on here that it was gas wells. You put it on there, it's for all businesses for safety.
Correct.
Because you would be like saying, we're gonna go tax the gas wells.
Well, no.
And so you had to keep it standard.
This
and
is
so
part of
it's gonna be-
this is part of a holistic process. We're looking at this from the standpoint of where are we now, and where do we need to be as we continue to see increased development. We have, right now, we've got 3 businesses that are getting ready to move into the city of New Fairview. All of those businesses are gonna be aware of the inspection requirements.
And those are?
It's an electric company, it's the concrete plant comes in, and I can't remember the third one's like an equipment storage
The
facility.
concrete plant's not been approved.
They have their zoning by rights already, so they're gonna complete a permit. What I've asked them to do is to, we created an economic development agreement with them for a 380 agreement, asking them to do certain things, and they're reviewing that, they're gonna get back to us, and then they're gonna come in and pull that permit. So they're, the ball's in their court right now, we've given them our requests. They visited with me last week, and they're gonna be coming back in with the comments from their neighbors. Thus far, the comments have been primarily positive. Most people are just happy that Graham Road section is gonna get improved and cut the dust down a lot. But, I've told them I want to have all the comments, and I want to know what the mitigation efforts will be. So we're gonna continue to walk that down the road, but from the standpoint of the permits do not require council action. The zoning was already completed in the past, and the rights are there, so they're already entitled to pull that permit.
I received some letters from some of the citizens that live in Skyview, and they were highly concerned about the dust that might be coming over into their area, and they were gonna be here tonight to speak, and they came, but they left.
Oh,
And so they wanted to have more input from Scott about that, they want to know more about that.
Yeah.
One of the things they talked about was having dust mitigation.
And that needs to be explained to them too.
If you could forward me their contact information, I'm more than happy to reach out to them. They have not reached out to me.
The dust from the plant is in addition to, they're gonna have a rubber tire turning motor that's gonna be running back and forth, putting gravel, rock, everything together. That's the biggest.
Well, in that regard, they're gonna have sprinkler systems up on their gravel tanks, just like any other place does. There's gonna be dust mitigation efforts put in place. We've already been talking about that. I'll tell you this, regardless of what they do, there's gonna be less dust on Grand Road if they put that concrete road in than there is currently. That road with Texas Pistols on the back end of it, they're getting as much as 150 to 200 cars a day driving up and down that road.
Road today, I went down 10 miles an hour, just flying there.
Saturday, they had the volleyball there, it's crazy.
I brought Henry in and we talked about that, and when we talked about it, she said that they're actually looking at getting several volleyball tournaments out here, and if they get those, you're gonna see even more cars coming.
Well, the concrete plant committed to paving it up to their facility.
Correct, to the end of their property line.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
just on a note on that too, he said something about them not working in the middle of the night or their hours.
No, so they're gonna be, readiness plans are generally you're gonna be looking at from 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the morning until about 3 o'clock.
Working on a construction site all the time.
Mhm.
I know that they do pour in the middle of it. So are they going to be the exception to every other construction company in this town?
Well, I mean,
You said there may be some.
Yeah.
It's not-
That happens.
Almost every house is getting poured in the middle of the night. They do that for a lot of reasons I don't have to get into, but him saying that they're not gonna start until 4 or 5 in the morning.
well, one of the things I did talk to them about is the requirements for the backup beepers on the back of that truck. It's you either have to have a backup beeper on it, or you have to have a manual person out there directing the truck.
So is the city telling them when they can start? Because the people around them are gonna hate life if they're running doing it all night.
Well, so they're
No, it's gonna be
already,
before 4 a.m. They like to be done by 4 a.m. when they get to a port site.
yeah, the use of the property is entitled. So there's nothing you guys can do from the
We
standpoint.
can't even tell them not to
That
work
was-
in the middle of the night.
That was a.
We're going
for work on the part of the city.
We're going to work with them to try and mitigate as much as we can from the standpoint of the comments that they're getting from their neighbors. Again, Mayor, if you forward me the contact information of those people, I'm more than happy to reach out.
It was
to them.
Charles that was on the council.
Charles.
Oh, okay.
Charles.
Charles.
Oh, Charlie's son.
Who lives back just behind me.
Yeah.
And he deals with, road work.
Back to this, being as written, it doesn't say anything about the electric company. It says,
Smith Company.
no, it says a risk of, operations that present a risk of dangerous incidents. That's not electric company.
What electric company would?
Well, there's an electric company that comes in. Well,
You're saying all business.
Every business presents a risk to public safety. If they have a business and they stack boxes in front of the exit and there's a fire, that's a risk to public safety. When we're talking about inspections, we're gonna go in and make sure that they're following the rules and they're following the guidelines and they're not putting a situation in place where if you do have an incident, that people cannot adequately escape the building.
Okay, so Bradley, is this adequately written?
He wrote it.
Oh.
Yeah. I was asked to put together, to draft an ordinance to accomplish, to set up a system, right? That would allow the city to pursue creating basically an opportunity to ensure that everything is functioning safely to the city. And I think this gets you there. Again, there wasn't a particular angle, it was just citywide. We want to make sure we're in a place to keep everybody safe in whatever circumstance it may be. And I believe this gives you clear authority, but also latitude to take whatever action you need.
Okay. No, to talk to you about this, to take the heat off of him over there. What steps and what things are you gonna be needing in the fire department to be able to go out for the inspections? Now, I work with North Richland Hills, Alton City, First, Watauga, that whole area, but in each one of their different cities operated a little bit different with the way that they did the fire inspections.
Right. Now, I don't know exactly everything, every tool we're gonna need, but you're gonna need, some kind of sniffer, gas sniffer, to be able to determine if there's leaks or anything. Having operated a big business in Arizona, fire marshal came and visits us every year. I mean, if a ceiling tile was missing, he'd write you up for it. If they wanted to put it back down before you walked out the door, he'd check all your, fire extinguishers, make sure that they were tested monthly. So you just go through the buildings, make sure that everything's in order. Those don't take a lot of training, it just takes knowledge and education to know what you need to look for, and so that you make sure that the building's safe. I mean, if it's, they got a room full of stuff, and, you got somebody set back in the corner, obviously you gotta have a way to get out of there to be safe. And you just kind of look for all those things, but again, a lot of it is through education and training and knowing what is the law, as far as being able to egress and ingress in and out of a room or a building. Making sure your fire hydrants or your fire extinguishers are all current, your electrical stuff. And if you notice a wire hanging out of the ceiling, that's going to be a problem. You're going to put that down in the report. If gas, you smell gas, that's going to be you got to get somebody out here right now to fix that. It's, you don't have 15 days, you got, an hour to get out here and take a look at this. So those kinds of things. There's a lot of, you just got to learn it, and you got to have a check sheet so that you are, you go through it in an organized manner, make sure you check everything every time to make sure that they're up to code.
And those are the checklists that we were talking about that we're going to be developing.
Well, now, does this going to work? We need to look at the whole fire department, because there've been a lot of changes during the last month in the fire hall building, correct?
Yeah.
Because it's pretty well been turned over to the fire department now, is that correct? All the stalls in the offices?
No, so one office has been turned over to the fire department. Two stalls.
Two stalls? I thought
We do have an office back there.
Yeah.
one was going to be seen about getting an ambulance in,
Correct. So
And that's good. All of it's good. I'm not being negative. But then I was gonna say, whenever you get to the point where you're gonna be doing the inspections in all the different ways, in the different areas, were you talking like 5 years hiring a full-time fire chief? Or the city?
we're gonna create a.
Or are you gonna go to that?
We're gonna create a path forward, but we're not to that point.
If we could, let's have a roadmap.
Yeah.
That we can all see and everybody can see.
Yeah.
Where all the fire department can see what we're planning to do in the future.
I
Because no, this has been a highly controversial thing in like Decatur. That was the reason National Rodeo Supply moved out of the city, because in so many other businesses, we were talking about the economic developments coming in here and the different businesses coming in. And right now, a lot of the businesses are choosing to be out of the city if they think it's going to be crazy on them.
Yep.
And this is one of the things that I saw working in the school district. Some fire departments really just were picky. And other fire departments in other cities were not as picky. And like that is part of the reason that Craig down here with all the gas company down there, he had lived in Saginaw, working with them all those years. And when he moved out here, it was the reason we could not get him to come in to the city.
Well,
To be part of the city, because he was worried about the
There
restrictions.
definitely has to be a balance. I mean, you can go overboard and run everybody out of town, you don't.
No,
You
I
want it to be
agree.
safe.
correct.
And that's what we're looking for.
And we've
We want
already-
it to be safe.
We've already.
Common sense. And that's like
Common
Irwin
sense.
Steel on 114 and County Line Road, and they had moved into the new Fairview area, and they shut down there because, and there are regular laws that are in our building codes. Like they had to do it down here at this volleyball. They had to put the water system in there.
Correct.
And how much did that cost down there?
$87,000.
87,000. Well, Irwin Steel was gonna have to put theirs in, it was gonna cost $1.something million for a water system to go in over steel in that building. So they went and they're moving from there and moving over here. They bought 230 acres to move their plant over here in this area.
So we.
I just wanted the good common sense and what is the road path for us to get to that point.
So to that point, we've already adopted the codes. We adopted the 2014 International Fire Codes. Those codes outline what the safety requirements are.
And that's different from the building codes.
Correct. We've adopted the 2015 International Building Codes. And for example, the fire marshal, there's gonna be some crossover. If you're talking about electrical wires, they're gonna be looking if there's something exposed or if they've got an outlet that's not.
Hanging out.
Well, it's hanging out, or if they've got an outlet that's got a extender on it, and they've got 36 different things plugged into it, that's gonna be something that they're gonna look at.
This isn't gonna be an 18-year-old volunteer fire department person doing the inspections.
No, as I said.
It's gonna be somebody with the education and knowledge to do it. Has to be.
That's what.
So you wrote this, that this is not obligating the city to hire an employee or a group or anything else?
No.
Okay.
Again, I see this kind of self-funding.
Yeah, and
It
that's,
should be a self-funding effort.
it should. Okay.
Shouldn't cost the city anything.
Somebody want to make a motion?
But works right.
That's just good for our discussion,
Right.
for us all to be on the same page, and for it to be in the minutes.
I make a motion that we
Approve item D as written.
7D, D as in dog, as written.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and second, or is there any discussion? Any more discussion?
Did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, I want to know if as written, in Chancellorsville and BKV, the operator of gas wells, pretty much.
Everywhere.
90% of Major City?
Yep.
Does this motion include the additions that we talked about?
It does. It's the red line.
It was up there, it was up there a while ago.
So it talks about the
Okay.
remedy of the time for notification and making remedy.
It's right here, Ken. Okay, it's up there.
So outside of the ongoing conversation that we'll continue to have with city staff, with that added in, you know, I don't have any other comment.
Okay.
You got, now Chance, he said a while ago that you guys are gonna be working on
Yeah, we've been working on it. We've had
all the
conversations.
prices,
going
on
back and
what
forth.
the fees are. And like Steve said a while ago, you're gonna go around to the different cities and look at what the prices are.
Yeah, we're working with the city administrator on that currently.
Okay.
See if we can all get on the same page.
Okay, we have a motion in a second.
Any other discussion? Got it? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Everyone was in favor. And, nobody? Okay, I'm just gonna go back and check on this. Open forum, did anybody else have anything they wanted to say tonight? Open forum?
Everybody's online.
Has anybody been online?
I've read it.
I'm gonna go to L,
I lost it.
excuse me, E, discuss, consider and act on a resolution engaging William C. Spore, PC, to provide annual auditing services for the fiscal years.
So this is just bringing forward an agreement for the next 3 years to make sure we've got our audits outlined, what's going to happen with it. He's given us a good rate, $3,000 per year. This is the same auditor that completed the 5 years that were not completed. He just completed the final year's audit that we had, and this would put him in place for the next 3 years.
What did he previously charge us?
It was a flat rate, $15,000 for or $14,000 for the previous 5 years, and then $3,000 for this last year.
So this is a little less.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make a motion, we accept it.
Second.
Item, we accept
Item
70. I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? F, discuss, consider, and act on a resolution calling a general election, and you have it there, everybody in the meeting has it for the election.
This is just a boilerplate language, have to do it in order to call the election for the open spots that we have. We've received applicants, so we need to have this voted on in order to comply with the law.
I make a motion that we accept item, that we approve item 7F as stated.
I second that.
Okay, a motion and a second, any other discussion? None, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Well, that takes care of all the voting on.
You have the consent item for the council minutes.
Okay, I'm gonna call a break. Thank you. Oh, man. What?
It's stretch time here.
Hello.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming out.
Ben, is there gonna be a planning and zoning meeting?
I need to, yeah, I'm gonna send out an email to everybody, kind of updating what we're gonna be doing on that. Hey, sorry, no problem. Just 1 second, yeah, sorry. So I page 3.
What was that? What was that? Judge Lane.
What do you know?
It's off.
It's gonna be sold.
Either way. So what happens if there's a fire tomorrow? We bought 4 years ago. Yeah, well. All right, well, good. So I was just had another 4 hours.
Yeah. Well, how about everybody do it?
Why would I do that? And you got it to me quickly, so it allowed us to.
Bradley, hello. Hello. We don't ever get to talk. Someday, we'll have to get together for lunch. I'll bring something from the store and we can just go out. What do you eat now? Y'all care, or do you even go to work much?
I do. Yeah, we're back to the office all the time. So, we've got space, in our offices and everybody spread out enough that it works well.
I've gotten to where I guess.
Yes.
I buy those original, frozen dinners. Healthy Choice, those kind, pop them in the microwave, and go. We'll just, okay, do a microwave meal.
We'll go grab one and do that.
Yeah, that was a question I asked a long time ago. I said, why can we do that? But once they said that it wouldn't stay on the packaging, there at the party, they said nobody could, you had to wait 3 days before you could or more. And then they got to where they said your acid in your stomach would kill the virus. And I said, okay.
I'm still not sure what happens, but we just do what we can, right?
My biggest takeout meal is go buy an extra large pizza and put hamburger meat on it, what I like to eat. And I'll put it in the refrigerator and I can get 3 meals out of it. How our lives have changed. They really, you never see anybody, don't talk to anybody. Well, we do, so you know what I mean. Yeah, no, completely.
It's crazy.
Your kids go to school?
They do, yeah, thankfully. They're back in person, so.
Which school do you?
We're in Eagle Mountain, Saginaw. We're in Eagle Mountain, Saginaw District. We're at High Country Elementary, 156 and Bailey Boswell, I guess. 287 goes down to 156, just goes south, and then main road that puts back over into Saginaw and Bailey Boswell. It's right there at that. Real close to Alliance.
What is this superintendent's name?
Chad.
His sister talked with me, and then he took care of my son. But he was a teacher at Northwest when my son was there, and so anyway, he got in some trouble, and he helped him during that time. And then his aunt and grandfather and all them lived here. right over here. Matter of fact, his grandmother, no, his aunt was in a car wreck with my mother. But he's real, Chadwell's, yeah, he's real nice. And he was a high school principal at Northwest for a while. And then he went to Franklin College. Okay. And he was over there, and then he went over there to long time, small world.
For sure. I'm gonna run in the radar bins. They thought it was, we were gonna hire policemen to run the radar bins. And I said, no.
What's going to count?
So Ben, somebody called me today about the burn ban, and our burn ban's tied to the county.
Right, yes.
When they say no burn.
We copy whatever they copy.
I usually, or do we have to do it by law? We have to call up there.
I do.
The dispatcher.
If I
You
burn,
should always call.
if I burn brush, trash.
Because if you don't, we get a call saying fire investigation, and then it just wastes a lot of resources.
Well, that happened to me one time, even if after I did call, they still showed up.
I used to call, well, I do, I still do. No, I don't burn it. I go with them because they're the dumpsters. Because
You can't put it, I just cut down a tree that's 36-inch diameter, you can't put that in the dumpster.
no, that's right, that's right, that's right.
There's some things.
On the county
you can't-
line,
Yeah.
it happened, this happened about 15 years ago. I called Wise County, but Wise County didn't contact either county or Justin. So it was the fact that I had to call both Denton County and Justin Fire Department and call the others.
The other option.
Everybody has a cell phone and they're picking that cell phone up and calling.
There's an online form that you can fill out, which notifies the dispatch office, and it also notifies the fire department. So they both get notified if there's a burn.
But it does waste a lot of time where, and sometimes we're out doing that, we get a second call.
Yeah.
And then you gotta say, okay, is it really a fire or is it not?
Right.
You gotta split up and.
Okay, open forum, okay. Okay. Let's go back up and we are on D. Discussion with the staff, and the staff, when you say discussion with the staff,
That's us.
that's what I'm gonna clarify. You're talking about with us? Okay. The revenues, expenditures, property tax rate, and exemptions.
Correct. So in the last meeting, we had a couple of council members who said they wanted to see what a general homestead exemption would look like for the city. So we forwarded you the information in the packet, which kind of outlined what that would look like. So basically it's for you guys to discuss. These are the exemptions that we currently have in place right now. If you add a general homestead exemption, basically what it is you can add up to a 20% exemption for any residential homestead, but it can be no less than $5,000, which means if you say we're going to give a 3% exemption and that only comes up to $3,000, then it automatically will be increased to $5,000. So, from the standpoint of impact for the city, if you guys went to the full mill deal and said we're gonna do a 20% general homestead exemption, then
We never talked percentage, we were talking about $10,000, which is what the county gives. I never.
we don't have the option of, we have to grant the percentage.
Percentage, okay, so did you figure 5%, 10%, 20%?
Well, if we give a 5%, you're talking about a $42,000 decrease in revenues. If you do 20%, you're talking about an $85,000 reduction in revenues. The thing about it is there's just not many real commercial entities that we're pushing that exemption up onto. So it's just going to be pretty much a straight reduction from standpoint of revenues to the city.
So is it worth it to do that?
Well, my thing is, why didn't they do this to begin with? Like, I would think if they wanted to implement a tax, they would already have the homestead exemption added on, so that way they could budget for it as the tax came in? Is the tax?
Well,
rate-
so the thing about it is this, if you put the homestead exemption in here before when they were setting this up, then your tax rate would have been set at 36 cents. And because the budget was defined, the tax rate was set to fund the budget. So if you reduce the revenues by 6% or 8%, whatever it is, then you have to increase your tax rate in order to offset it.
What if we had something like a street maintenance tax added on to the tax that people might want to purchase something? Say like they go to Dollar General and purchase stuff.
So you can do that, but what that does is that takes part of that 1.5% sales tax that we have right now that we can use for streets, or we can use for any general fund purpose. And it takes it and it breaks it out, and it says that we're gonna put 1/4 of a penny, or we're gonna put 1/8 of a penny towards nothing but streets.
Okay, so we
reconstruction.
got some other tax?
It's not new money, it's existing money that would just be.
No, we got, what kind of tax, city tax that's paid to us, when someone buys something?
Yeah, that's a 1.5% that the city has for sales tax.
Well, could we not increase that to like 3%, 4%?
No, it's state law. 2% max is what can be done. The county took 0.5 cent for property tax reductions, and then that left the city 1.5 pennies.
So
Dallas
this
and Fort
city
Worth
is
are like
2%?
8.5%.
Yes, we're 2% from standpoint of what's being taxed. We're 8.25%, which is the maximum sales tax rate in the state. Of
I
that,
thought the state was 6 and we.
the state is 6.25.
Yeah.
We're 1.5 pennies, and then the county's 0.5 penny.
Oh, okay, so that comes to that.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew that didn't add up.
Yeah.
Okay,
And the county did theirs.
well,
I don't know why. I mean, most places, the cities will gobble up that tax as quickly as they can. Out here, I think what ended up happening is the cities just did not take it. And when they didn't take it, the county came in and took it. So,
Ben, and I'm gonna keep saying this, we have some really poor people in the city that every penny counts. And this doesn't affect me. I'm over 65, so I already got it.
no, I get it. So on average, if you implemented the full 20%, it would save homeowner $5 a month. That's the average cost, or average savings that a homeowner in New Jersey.
$60.
But it would have a huge impact on the city. I mean,
Yeah, it would,
impact their-
that cuts our
20% is the 80-something thousand.
20% is the amount that is allowed under the law
I
to.
understand, Ben, but in money.
Oh, it's about $85,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 10% is what?
About 42.5.
42. Well, what do y'all think?
Is this something that you can
Then-
kick down the road for a year or two?
Well, so that's the other thing about it. So the legislature, just expired this year, but it used to be if you adopted this, it was permanent and there was no going back on it. Now, they set a sunset clause in it and it's sunset, but I will almost guarantee you that in this legislative session, they will put it back in place, which means once you do this, there is no changing that until it expires again, which might be 10 years, or they might not put a sunset clause in this time. They may just say this is a permanent. And in the current environment, it would not surprise me that they put this in as a permanent rule. And once you adopt it, you are accepting it forever.
Because I'm looking down the road, when we get businesses going over the tops and our revenue goes up, then those exemptions would be something.
Correct.
Right.
When you have a commercial entities and places that do not qualify for those exemptions, and all of a sudden it makes sense because, you know what, we're gonna increase our taxes 5 cents and we're gonna reduce our taxes to our residents by 5 cents by granting an exemption. So you're ultimately what you're doing is you're keeping your revenue flat, but you just shifted the cost of those taxes to an alternative source.
Okay, we've talked about this over and over. Everybody knows how I feel about taxes. You're committed that you'll give us a budget in time for us to address the property tax rate for the next fiscal year.
Yes, so what we will do is we will work together to develop a budget. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna sit down, we're gonna have a work session, and I'm gonna ask you, what do you guys wanna accomplish in the upcoming year? What are your priorities, what are your goals? Do we wanna fix more roads, do we not wanna fix roads, what is it we want to accomplish? And you guys are gonna tell me this is what we wanna accomplish, and I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna tell you this is what it's gonna cost. And then you guys get to look at that and say, oh, well, that's more than we wanna spend, where are we gonna cut? That's ultimately your decision. I will come back to you with the numbers that you're looking
Or
for.
that's my only concern is that you do it in time to give us the opportunity to address the tax rate, whether it stays the same, it goes down or whatever.
Correct,
But
and you'll have
at least for us to
plenty of
address it.
time to have that conversation.
Okay.
So the one thing about this, though, to understand, if you want to do this and put the exemption in place, you have to do it before July of the year. If you don't do it before July, then this exemption is not going into effect until the following year.
So a 10% rate would save somebody, average of $60,
$250 a month, $30 a year.
$30 a year?
Yep.
Wow, that's not much.
And if you're talking about the neighborhood up in Hilltop, the
Yeah.
majority of them will be looking at no more than $2.50. The balance will be looking at about $5 per month.
So.
Okay, yeah,
I'm okay with not taking any action on it before, what, June or July? As long as we do discuss it maybe at a later date, because one thing that I always, whenever I'm looking at my taxes, you see what exemptions you get for everything.
Yeah.
And it kind of bothers me that I look at the city, which is the last thing that's been implemented, and I get the least amount of exemptions there. So that just,
so what's the latest we can?
This would have to be done before July, which means it would have to come
So
forward.
let's put it on a June agenda.
So to understand this though, if you guys say, okay, we want to do this in June, we adopt it in July, and then you say we want to keep everything going the same as it is next year, then what we're going to look at is a 5-cent tax rate increase to offset the lost revenues.
No, we wouldn't have to increase.
If everything, that said, everything being the same as it is right now, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like.
You seem to have the same budget.
Correct, to keep the dollars the same. So what I'm saying is,
I don't care if we don't take action.
Yeah, I think what we have right now is good. And you leave it at that.
I mean,
Until, like you said, until we get more businesses coming in to where we can take that money and offset what we lose.
But those people that came and did the commercial, and they're absolutely right. No big major business is coming in on that water. So it just.
Right, and it's not gonna come, there's nothing to come in for a while anyway, so. Yeah.
just as long as.
Niagara decided to come in, though, they were really.
Okay.
All right.
As long as it's on the best part.
I'm through with it, everybody else.
Every single time we get more revenue for the city, as long as we keep that in mind, like, okay, we talked about this before, we maybe throw this on the table if we could afford it. But that's the only thing that I'd ask.
So if we all already agree, why do we have to wait?
well, I think what they're saying is we table this until in a more appropriate time. Because you're not taking any action in essence, you're tabling it for a later time.
It's not an action item.
No, that's not.
Well, there's an ordinance that we had Bradley prepare under the action items that you guys can take. I wanted to have a discussion
Oh,
here
yeah,
first.
you did, that's
But
right.
there is an ordinance on here that you
Yeah.
guys can take action on if you decide you want to take action on.
Which,
No,
It's item C.
I see.
I mean, if we already agree, I don't know why we couldn't just.
Well, you don't even have to vote on it. That's what I'm saying.
We don't even have to bring it up.
No.
We don't have to. If you bring it up and vote on it, then you can't bring it again for another, what, 6 months or something like that?
That is correct, because you guys, the way you guys.
So you table it, then we can bring it up later on.
Okay. All right, we're done with everything.
Moving on.
while you're talking about taxes, I wanted to go back to one thing on the fire department. In the future, if you would consider have you looked at having a tax district like Boyd? And like, I think Paradise does, because we have a lot of land in the ETJ area.
So the thing about setting up a tax
Do
district.
you know what I'm talking about right there?
What is that called?
That just creates an additional layer of taxation over top of it, and that district, you don't have control over. You set up a third-party government entity that has the governing authority for that taxing entity. If you're going to look at doing some type of tax for public safety, I would maintain it in city council's control. I wouldn't want to go out and create another, it's like saying, let's go create another MUD or something and put it in the middle of our city, that we have to contest with another governmental body. So I would not recommend that at all.
Isn't there, can we not, I thought I seen something in Texas cities that said something about creating a tax in the ETJ. It's called an MD something.
There is, and that's something that's on our upcoming agenda that we can talk about, is a municipal development district.
A what?
I mean,
Municipal.
municipal development district.
Yeah, that's it, municipal development.
And the reason I was asking that, we'll get back, we'll continue what you're talking about right there, is because what they were doing over there in those areas was trying to create additional income for the fire department by going out to all the property that was in the ETJ area. And the ETJ area is going to be served by the fire department.
Right.
And for wrecks and everything, and it was a way for them to bring in some revenue, but you wouldn't do it like Boyd did it, but you would put it into a MUD.
No, I would not recommend, I mean, that's a council decision, right?
Now, why? I don't understand why you don't want to see about getting more revenue for the fire department.
Well, from the standpoint of getting more revenue, we have to weigh the getting more revenue with the giving up control.
What'd you say, get more revenue?
Okay, like if all that land is in the ETJ, and if you put in the fire department's gonna be going to all those houses if they catch on fire. But right now, they're not contributing to the fire department.
They actually do as a way of insurance.
So you're able to-
We file a claim.
Well, how do we contribute to the fire?
Well, if we're under the city umbrella, that would be.
But we don't have a fire department. How
So
do we in the city contribute?
So let me, if we do it a district, a special district to incorporate those other places, first of all, it has to be a ballot initiative, which means you have to put it onto the ballot for everybody that would impact, and you have to have a certain.
City and ETJ?
City and ETJ, everybody have to vote it in. When you vote that in, you're going to create another governmental entity that will have another governing body, and you guys give up control at that point.
So who's over it?
I don't have much control over it anyway.
Well, so the agreement that we've put in place with the fire department right now, that Bradley and I worked on is they will amend their bylaws to allow the council to appoint their governing body from amongst the members of the volunteer fire department. They will also allow the appointment of one person from the council or one person of their delegate to act in the role of the governing body. And then also the city administrator acts as the executive director of the nonprofit organization. The executive director develops the budget is then presented to the city approves the budget. So you have very significant amount of control over the volunteer department if we continue down this path.
Now, wait, okay. I'd like for that to all be in writing in the future.
It is
And
in
then
writing.
I was going over to Bradley about him drawing up a document between the fire department and the city, because we're gonna be liable for anybody being injured. And like, where does the fire department stand with us on that? Is this going to be considered a Fairview Fire Department, or is this going to be considered a volunteer fire department on liability?
It's still volunteer fire department. It will be a volunteer fire department until we determine that we want to bring it in-house and make it a paid volunteer, a paid or a hybrid department. But Bradley did.
Right now, the city is not contributing, not required to contribute anything to the fire department.
Well, we're contractually obligated to $1,000 in use of the facility, the 2 bays, and an office space at this point.
And then what about the fees that we're going to be collecting? Aren't we collecting the safety fees?
The city would be collecting the safety fees, and then we'd be contracting out.
Paying them?
Correct. So it's not necessarily going to be paying them. We'll be purchasing the equipment, the gear, all that will be maintained as a city asset. The fire department will be making use of the city assets, just like they're making use of our facilities next door. You know, the city would maintain all of those trucks or equipment or gear or whatever it is. So it still is maintained as the city's site. The, you know, from the standpoint of liability, you know, there is the potential liability. That's why we carry $15 million policy through TML for that. I mean, everything that we do, there's a
For the fire department?
Well, for our operations in general. You know, so from the standpoint of liability, we're always going to have some degree of liability that's in place, and we are insured for that.
Well, that's gonna have to, that needs to all be in clear writing.
We have,
It's not it's not very clear right now.
well,
Because I just found out, you know, what I mean is, it needs to be where the regular person here can see how that money flows, because you're saying that we're gonna pay for the maintenance and upkeep of the trucks. And we're gonna be, are some of the trucks or
so
from those fees, am I gonna right?
So these fire inspection fees, right now, in the city of New Fairview, there are 440 oil and gas wells. If you look at the city of Denton, or the city of Fort Worth, or the city of Decatur, the annual inspection fee per inspection is anywhere from $500 to $750 per well. Denton, they do biannual inspections. I anticipate that we're going to initially start with a biannual inspection, and that we're going to transition based upon the safety record of those wells and the operator to an annual inspection. But, you know, we're looking at, you know, if you get $1,000 per well, you're talking about a revenue stream of $440,000 a year. So that $440,000 a year predominantly will bear a relationship to where those services are being rendered. What are we charging that fee for? It's for safety inspections. That's going to be completed by the fire department. We're going to spend those dollars to equip them and make sure that they have appropriate training and gear to respond if an incident occurs. Now, we'll also incorporate a portion of that for some administrative support, because we're, you know, more than likely, and this is the first step of the marriage of the fire department and the city of New Fairview. You know, what we asked the fire department to do was to change their name to the City of New Fairview Volunteer Fire Department. We asked them to adjust or update their bylaws, and their bylaws would basically state that the council gets to appoint their governing body, that the city administrator would also serve as the executive director of that nonprofit corporation, and that we would develop a budget to be presented for the council as part of our annual budget adoption.
Okay, are you gonna have Bradley to write that?
Bradley's already,
Or are you gonna write that? Don't you kind of need to write that with the fire department before you give it to Bradley?
well, I had Bradley drop the,
Is Bradley, what do you think?
I had Bradley drop the language, and I shared that with the fire department. So they're having a conversation right now, and then they'll come back to us.
Well, and also, I can't see him doing all the financial part.
But this,
He doesn't do the financials, that's.
But I want that financial part written down.
this money's
Clear,
all
right.
coming out of those fees, right?
Correct.
It's not,
Not new money that we have to go through that passage, it's covered, it's gonna be.
that's fine, as long as there's no additional tax.
So self-funding, that's the whole,
That's great, that's wonderful.
The dollars that you're talking about, those budgets, it's gonna be predominantly, you know, I've talked, I don't know if he's here or not. I talked with the treasurer, and he's gonna be working on putting together a budget for the equipment that we'd be looking
Okay,
at.
so you're gonna have that. I'm totally unaware of all these.
Well, that's really not on the agenda tonight for discussion. I mean, it's.
So you're gonna be talking about.
Correct, we're gonna be talking about that, and part of that discussion is when we bring in that fee schedule, we're gonna say, this is the budget, this is the equipment, gear, training, the equipment that we need. In order to accomplish that, this is what our fee schedule is going to look like, and this is what we're gonna do.
Well, see, like tonight, we had on the agenda to go ahead and start this fee, the safety program.
No, what we put on the agenda is the authority to implement safety or annual safety inspections. And then in the packet, it says that we're gonna bring forward a fee schedule and a checklist in March.
Yeah, there was no monetary,
Because,
But you wanted to go ahead and get this done tonight.
correct,
I just wanted to make sure the cart wasn't before the horse, and horse,
no.
you know, both ways on that.
And honestly, the reason why I wanna do this is because I'm still reaching out to people in the community. You know, Chance was in here tonight, Chance and I have met, we've talked, he's come back and he said, hey, We knew this was coming out of the pipeline at some point, but this is gonna be a huge impact. You know, we operate 75–80% of the wells in New Fairview. So whatever we charge is predominantly coming out of our pocket. If you look at our commercial entities, we have 12 total local companies that are paying a sales tax currently right now in the city. They have 440 individual sites that are BKB, 315 of them are theirs. So, they're gonna be looking at the lion's share from it. And so I told him, come back with how best can we implement this to meet the city's goals and still not make it be a huge hickey to you guys, because we want to be good partners with the people that are working here in New Fairview with us. And so we've discussed some of those issues, and we're gonna work down that, and then when we come to a conclusion between us that we feel is equitable and that they can work with, then we'll bring that forward. So we wanna have a little bit more time to have those conversations. I think we're in a good spot for where we need to be right now, but, it's gonna be March 31st or March 1st is when we'll bring that fee schedule forward. And we probably will not start the inspections for another 30 to 60 days after that, because we're gonna need time to get the equipment, people trained, to make sure we've got everything set up and running. So, we're probably 60 to 90 days out from us going out and doing the work.
So the money's gonna go into our books,
The money is the city's, because the city is the one that has.
and they're gonna decide, they're gonna be responsible for the money. Are we gonna have a check?
The money will be appropriated by the city council.
We're just volunteers.
They're volunteers, and they're gonna say, this is what we need budget-wise, and I'm gonna work with them on developing their budget each year. And then we'll roll that budget up into the city councils, or into the city's budget, and the council will approve that budget during the normal budget process.
$400,000 a year, that's a sizable amount.
It's gonna help them out.
Yeah.
Well, hell, you have zero now. That really,
Back in the old days, when we used to get $1 million a year in sales tax, and we gave the fire department huge amounts of money.
right.
Takes a lot.
Remember burning that LA over there?
Yeah, the old fire department,
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't give me any gloves, they burned my hand.
And not only that, the city had stepped up by providing the land, the parking lot, the
There's no
building.
question.
That is all really, this has been in progress since Steve and I were out there with the hay bale.
Yeah, but I think that's a great.
But it just reached our response time, or, yeah.
Oh, yeah, but we need that from the very
Cut in
beginning.
half what we've been.
When we designed the first deal, we knew.
Harvey, you're a stayer.
All right. I don't need to hear about hay bales, I'm out of here.
You don't know all anyhow. All right, very good. I think my questions are reasonable and logical. I just want to be real clear on that.
And to give you an idea, this is looking at hydrocarbon well operations, commercial business operations, food establishment operations, and rental properties. Now, we may not enforce all these immediately, but this grants
What
the.
would a rental property cover?
Well,
We
so,
don't have any apartments, do we?
no, but we have a lot of those homes up in Hilltop that are rentals. And a lot of the problems, a lot of those properties that are rental properties are the ones that are falling apart.
You're talking about over here in this.
Yeah. So,
And that slumlords is not taking.
I
yeah,
had no idea.
it's a cash cow, so I don't have to invest anything into it, and they continue to pay their rent, and it's not.
That's true, that's the ones that where all the junk is.
Correct.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Because they don't care, right?
Yes.
They don't care.
this sets up the ability for us to start to look at doing some type of enforcement action.
Really?
Yeah, we won't do it immediately, we're not gonna come down like,
Oh, I'm all for it, so.
enforcement requires.
Sorry for
I'm
being-
all
That's
for
what
it.
our taxes, but you have to understand, enforcement costs money, and that's.
But if it's net revenue, net equal, then it's okay, yeah.
Well, it's not.
If you charge for something and you get something back, then it's okay.
This one is not one where you tend to make money.
Really, I wanted to know when I was gonna have to break my electrical wiring in my old buildings over there, for the.
Okay, can we go on?
Okay. That was informal.
Was that D?
Yeah.
E, okay.
Okay, and E, we just discussed.
Yes, we did, yes, we did.
And F, discuss the staff workload. and utilization of consultants. I think you're doing a good job with them now.
This was something you requested to?
Yeah, I just was really wanting to reinforce to make using like Barry Hudson.
But we're not going to have them here at every meeting. That's not what you're asking, right?
I just want to make sure they're utilized and be available for the city council to ask questions to at times.
Every time they come here, they charge us money.
That's what I was gonna say.
Okay, the only thing I was going to say on this is Barry Hudson, like him to come here, he charges the developer.
Well, he charges for the moment until the shoot branch presentation is over, and then, he leaves. That's why he didn't stay for the rest of the meeting. Bradley, he came, he's here for the whole meeting. We don't get to bill this whole meeting to that. So, the shoot branch conversation ended 2 hours ago. This is on the city.
But, it's not bad for the new council to have him.
But we don't need them here all the time.
No, but I think we should have Bradley here
When
occasionally.
Occasionally, but not all.
when it's appropriate, and this is a council decision, you guys need to determine. If you guys want Bradley
So,
here for
so
your meeting,
why,
then
why are you here tonight? At whose request?
he's here at my request tonight. Because we had a number of issues on here that were related to the ordinance for the exemption. I wanted him for you to talk about that. We had the ordinance regarding the safety inspections. I wanted you guys to have him here for conversation with that. And then we also have the shoot branch, which we have an agreement that we put in place with them, which allows for that reimbursement. I wanted you to have him here for that. Ultimately, did he need to be here for those? It depends on what your comfort level is. I mean, the documents were all in the packet, the material was all in the packet, the ordinance was in the packet. When we write an ordinance, Bradley reviews it. Every single time we have an ordinance written, he reviews it, whether he's here or not.
Well,
So
it's going to be amazing to all of you that there are going to probably be a lot of meetings where he needs to be here.
Well,
Just by the agenda items.
Another thought that I was thinking is, again, how we organize the way people speak. I mean, the same type of thing, we organize around Bradley's time so he can be here and go. I mean, that
That is done often.
And his wife would like that even more.
So can we start doing that immediately, so whatever we have to get done, let's get done so people can go, like, I thought we were gonna let people talk, and then they left, and we didn't do that tonight.
well, and I think we ought to give that same courtesy to our citizens.
That's what I'm
Open
saying.
forum.
So why didn't we do that tonight? I thought we already discussed this.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I don't know why.
So right now,
If we're gonna let some developer or builder or whatever come in here and talk
Then
and
they should
and
wait.
go, then our citizens should have that same
Right.
courtesy.
So right
Hey,
now,
Citizens should have been first.
I get it. So right now, the way this is done is based upon the policy that the council adopted. And the way the council adopted it is the first section is going to be an executive session, followed by work session, followed by open forum, followed by consent item, followed by regular.
Yeah, but we skipped all over, man.
If you're joining
I talked to the mayor earlier today. I said, Mayor, if you want to come in, we can sit down and have a conversation so that we can try and schedule this to do that. And he said, let's do it when we get here in the meeting. So we did.
No, I wrote you a letter.
I know you did. That's what I said.
And I said to make sure that we had the people that were here to speak first.
And I think we did.
And that's what we did.
And that's what we said.
The same courtesy for our citizens, yeah.
Some of the citizens left because they didn't get a chance to talk.
Oh,
They should have
see,
talked before.
I never heard you bring up open forum.
I didn't.
I thought,
That's-
didn't you
that's
say
my problem.
in the beginning, Brandon?
I didn't hear it.
Open forum.
Were you
Didn't
gonna
say
do that
it.
anymore?
No, the open
Or
forum
skip it
is
over.
different.
We owe them a,
Can we
Well,
fix that so
technically
the
it
next
is
meeting
suspended.
that they can talk to us?
Technically.
Okay, that was my, so he says technically it is suspended for open forum, which is, but if you're doing it, if you let the developers talk, why can't the citizens? I mean, that's splitting straws, isn't it?
Oh, well, no, you can allow it. There's nothing to say that you can't.
Okay.
I'm just saying from a legal standpoint, right now, you wouldn't be in violation if you didn't do it.
I got you.
It's perfectly acceptable
So-
to do it.
yeah, and it's just rude, it's rude.
Starting the next meeting, from here on out, what do we have to do to make it so that they sign up, they talk,
Well, they have a sign up form out
but then they can talk first?
there. Well, okay, here, they have a sign up form out there.
And everybody does.
And they sign up and they put on there what they want to talk about.
So what we
Because
can
they get
do,
this agenda, it's put out, it's been put out for a week.
I know.
What we can do is we can, what I'll do is I'll bring back an amendment to the policy that you guys have that restructures the.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what we'll do is we'll move the public forum to the beginning of the meeting. So we'll have the roll call pledge and then we will go into.
When did we do the vote? When did we do the vote to have it the way we have it now?
That was with Alan when you guys adopted the procedure.
So what it was Alan set it up that way. And then he talked, okay, Alan set it up that way.
Anyway, we're
And
fixing
said
it.
that way. And
So,
set
and
the
then
form.
the other thing I wanted to ask, sorry, so we got that fixed, right? Are we all on the
Yes,
same page?
Just let me rephrase it again for you, okay? We just had to vote to have it the way you want to have it.
Do we need to vote?
Oh, we do?
No, I have to put it onto the agenda
Yeah,
and then
put it on
next
the agenda
meeting,
first.
present it, and you guys have to take action at the next meeting.
But we'd like to go ahead and have it the way she wanted, and they,
We can't do it at the next
In the
meeting.
next meeting, he can say we're gonna hold public forums in the first of the meeting.
Okay.
But from the standpoint of amending the
Okay.
policy, that's a different thing.
Okay.
Next thing I wanted to ask is, I thought that one of our first meetings that we ever had, we already decided that it was your job to be contacting him so that we could lessen that bill to the citizens. Did we not?
Yes, I
So
agree with
has
that.
that changed?
Well, I mean, that's what the mayor wanted to talk about tonight, that's what he asked.
And
You get
I
an
sent you
email?
an email that said I wanted a legal opinion.
Mayor.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't have no problem with going through you. I don't have any problem.
I mean, ultimately, the council is the one that creates that policy and is the one that determines what that looks like.
Because if anybody but you is talking to him, it's costing the city money. So what do we have to do to put into place? Because like I said, I thought this was already done, so that you're the only ones contacting Bradley. No offense, Bradley.
Bradley,
Uh,
how,
I thought it was a gentleman's agreement.
what are your thoughts?
Well, apparently not.
Why, who contacted Bradley other than Ben?
Not sure that,
Who contacted you other than Ben?
I get emails from the mayor sometimes, or, I know Steve is on those and then Ben, so.
And that's
So every
substantial.
time you get an email, there's a charge.
So let's just say. if
To be
somebody-
clear, I didn't
Let's
ask you
just say that
anything.
if somebody.
I was CC.
What I see, what
Let's
I
just say that if
see.
somebody at this table emails
He
him,
has
it's
to
gonna
read
cost
it though.
Well,
him reading it
sure,
costs
okay,
hundreds
first
of
of all,
dollars.
That's right.
Steve, you
So
said
I
you
don't want to, I
CC.
want to stop.
That means that somebody contacted you,
I'm behind you.
or you're on someone else's email.
Yeah,
Who's that? Mayor's?
yeah.
Yeah,
How is that?
I sent him.
Okay, how come the rest of us aren't on there?
Well, that's completely
Because that
different.
would be a quorum violation.
Yeah, we can't do that.
So what, I don't want emails from,
That's not a quorum between you and the mayor?
No, that's not a quorum.
but you guys know that it's costing the city money for y'all to be emailing.
I know, I'm not emailing.
So why don't you-
Why are you doing it?
The reason I do it is for documentation.
Yeah, I have.
And I do it, when I send a letter to him, I wanted documentation on what I said, and I wanted our attorney to see what I had said. And for him to have a record in his office of those things. And I only sent him probably that one email this month, and you may have gotten like in the conversation, it went back and forth 2 times. And there wasn't anything on there that I did want your opinion on all of that. And I wanted you to be aware of those issues for us to resolve in this meeting.
So the issue arises in that, I pulled the bills. So for the month of November, we spent $555 in Bradley's time to read emails from the mayor.
Because it caused me.
The
like 2
majority,
hours.
the majority of those emails were also copied to Barry Hudson. Barry Hudson is more expensive than Bradley. So the month of November, we probably spent $1,000 to $1,500 on email reviews, which really, did you respond?
What did we get back from that?
There was no response. There was not anything that
That's
was
just reading
requested.
that.
That's just to review the content. Because Bradley is in a tough spot.
And all I wanted him to have is it on record, and then for him to be able to bring in
But
information.
if you don't get a response, how do you know that he was? If there's no response.
I never get a
there's
response.
Nothing validated
Because
to
that would be
you
a-
as a mayor.
That would be 500 times 2.
So, you know,
Right?
Or
Or
it
three.
depends
it depends on how detailed this is.
And what happens, responsive, got it.
This is a lawyer.
Gotcha.
So this is what happens. Sometimes he and I have disagreements about situations. And, you know, what the role of the city council is, what his role is, what my role is. And my role is less and less. You, the city council, are the ones, when you have the different kind of managements in different cities, you can have the manager role, where it's just the manager runs everything, and y'all just sit back and deal with just some policies. Or you have the city council that helps manage the city with the mayor, with the city manager. Is that correct?
Well, I mean,
Really, the mayor has gotten to the point, since you hire a city manager, which I helped get to this point by having property taxes. And if we didn't have the property taxes, we couldn't have had the city manager. And we couldn't have moved forward with the roads. There's so much that we could not have accomplished. So you need to be looking at how your role as a city council is going to be
Well, that's.
in the city in the future.
That's on here, right, about agenda items?
yeah, so that's what we were talking about, the agenda and updating that. I'm going to bring back the policy to change that agenda format moving forward. Now, one of the things that's on here right now, the
Talk
way,
about other agenda.
correct, the way items get onto the agenda currently, it
Okay.
says that the city manager can add items, the mayor can add items, or 2 council people can add items. That's the policy. If you guys want to change the way items get added to the agenda, then that's a decision that the council needs to make. That updates the policy, and then you vote on it. If you change the way items get added to the agenda, then it will reflect the way that you guys would like to see those.
So does it need to be added to the agenda, excuse my ignorance,
So-
to only have, be more organized, and any emails aren't gonna cost us money to have them read by whoever, go through you, so it can be more condensed and spend less money on.
Well, and I'm gonna ask this right here
That's
too.
not the.
Sometimes there are things that cost of business. You know, you have the cost of business. We're taking in a tremendous amount of money. You know,
Oh, I agree. I've said that since they started the tax. It's too
But that
much.
doesn't mean we need to be spending it on stuff that doesn't need to be spent on.
well, so that means that the role of the mayor doesn't even, you don't even need a mayor.
No, Joe, that's, nobody's saying that. Here's my, Adam, I told Bradley this, I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think any one person should be setting the agenda. Not you, not any one person should be setting the agenda. It should be you and Julie, or Ben and me, or whatever, but it ought to take 2 people to put something on the agenda, because we all agreed to have 2 meetings a month to cut down on the agenda, and we didn't cut nothing down tonight.
So,
And it's gonna be very difficult to do it in the future.
All we're doing right now is arguing, Steve.
No, we're discussing.
so from the
I'm
standpoint,
I'm sorry.
We're getting somewhere.
from the standpoint of the items that I'm putting on the agenda, the items that I put on the agenda are items that I have received 2 council members coming to, or it's items that are timely, which if we do not do, then, you know, there's certain things where there's shot clocks. If somebody comes in and puts a plat on, or submits a plat application for us, and we do not get it back to them within a 30-day timeframe, it's approved.
A what?
30 days, that's on time,
I know what 30 days.
a plat.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So sometimes there are time constraints that are outside of our scope, which means I don't have a choice as to what we put onto the
And
agenda.
that's absolutely fine.
So in this regard right here, so if you were looking at this agenda right here, what is it that you would want to see removed?
Well, I mean, the mayor requested a lot of them.
I wrote some letters there that he put them on here, but they were,
Yeah,
I didn't request them to really be on the agenda, it was.
Okay, so
Concerns.
if we're gonna, we agreed to have 2 meetings a month
Uh-huh.
to cut down on the agenda. So why couldn't some of these things be put on the next agenda?
Our next agenda has at least this many items on it. The city business, you're gonna only see more and more work and more stuff being added to the agenda.
We'll just have to be quicker.
The best part of it is getting to the point where you've reviewed the packet, you know what's going on, you're ready for coming in and having the conversation and making decisions.
And I absolutely agree with doing all that we can beforehand, but people are coming to hear
Absolutely
what's
agree.
going on.
Absolutely agree.
So there's got to be some discussion. I mean,
Totally
you
agree.
could go on and on, but there has to be some discussion so our citizens know what we're doing.
That's why we have to have a public meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why you don't meet at the dairy.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So, you know, I'm just saying that we should be as efficient with our time as we can. Now, this is better, it's 10:30, last time it was 11:30, and the time before that it was 11:45.
See, any better?
I suggest we follow this is the way it is, except when we start going down it, somehow or another, we start jumping up.
Well, it was because we wanted to get the people in here.
Yeah.
And it was a failure not having the public
I
speak.
agree.
Because we all have, we've made the public speak first for the last
We just
15
need to
years.
figure it out, but, you know,
But that includes,
discuss
our
our
citizens, so they need to have the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Everybody.
Maybe the work session needs to be done.
Okay, so we know when our next meeting is, 2 weeks?
February 15th.
2 weeks.
February 15th.
Was there anything else we need to discuss on this?
Yes, real quickly.
We've got the city website.
Okay, what's next?
Tell us what the status of the website, because if you read on the information that you put in here that I wrote, at the end of the last meeting, you talked about, I can read it for you, but I'm not gonna read it.
So
It was,
we've
what
all
is your
heard-
plan to do with the website? Because you found out that the website programs are not any.
Our current website, you know, see, this goes back to what your conversation was about, why I did not have a forum.
Yep.
The current website we have does not accommodate it, does not allow for it. We could go out and find a third party and have a separate thing, but the law states that it has to be on our website. It has to be, you know, basically wherever our site is, this has to be on it. So what we're looking at is how do we accommodate that? Now, there's some other services that I'm collecting quotes on, so you guys can see what those would cost. I've used them in the past. They're $15,000 to $30,000 for the full.
But we spent that before and didn't get nothing for it.
Well, we didn't spend that much, but we did spend some money. Now, the other option, and this is what I'm meeting with the same group that's doing our technology support for the city right now. They do web development. I'm sitting down with them next week to talk to them about doing a custom site for us. Basically, we'll be using, you know, a WordPress or some type of a CMS framework, which is readily available. It's secure, still will meet all the needs that we need for our purposes, but it's customizable. But there's going to be some costs associated with it. I've got some money in my budget that I think I can already apply towards it. But if it's going to get to where I have to go beyond what the budget we have within currently adopted, then I'll bring it back to you guys and let you know, hey, I don't want to spend $30,000. I think I can get it done for $5,000 to $8,000 if I do it with this group that we're already working with. And I think I can fit most of that into our existing budget. That's my goal, but I have not had that meeting with them yet. But we have discussed multiple times as to what our needs are, what our requirements are, what we're looking for. And we're supposed to meet next week to kind of work out the final details and get some pricing back, so I know what that looks like.
The city of Boston has a really cool.
They do. And they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars every year on that website.
But we ought to get a warranty. If we're gonna buy something, we ought to have a damn warranty.
Well, I would say in some regards, it's buyer beware. The site that we have right now, it's very limited
And
into
it
what
was
the capabilities are.
the website program that we have now was selected by our last interim city manager.
Correct. This was,
He went around and looked at different ones, we came to the city council, it cost like $8,000 for it.
I think it was $4,500 for the website and like $2,000 a year for hosting the site, so
And
6,500 or something.
it just didn't turn out to be what everybody thought.
No.
It's more realistic to be between the 15 and 30,000.
Well, I don't think we need to spend that much.
But I mean, what is
Yeah,
it gonna
well,
take
I think that we can get it done for less than $10,000 if we do our own,
to get one that's really good?
one that's really good.
And then who is gonna have time to work on it?
Well, that's what I'll be working with this third party is to set it up. The thing about, if.
Not just setting it up, but
No,
keeping
no,
it up there.
The thing about a content management system is honestly, when you look at the front right, if I give you user controls and I say, Mary, this is your page, when you click on that, there's a little pencil icon on the top. You can click the pencil icon and you can completely edit everything on that page yourself. So from a standpoint of keeping it up, we don't really have an issue with keeping the content updated. If you look at our website is consistently updated, I would say weekly for the most part. As long as we have the information we're doing, we're pushing it out. So we don't really have an issue of doing that, but we do have issues related to, we have a page on our website that is for deferred adjudication. If you know what deferred adjudication is, defensive driving. Well, I can't tag that page to say if somebody does a search for defensive driving, pull up this. It only works if it says deferred adjudication. And so we have people that contact and they say, hey, why do you guys not have defensive driving? Well, we do, but you have to know what the term is to find it. And then if you don't know what the term is, what we've defined it as, I can't create metadata or any type of a tag to it to make it easily found.
Because I tried to search for fire ban tonight.
Correct.
Fire ban.
The other issue is,
I'm gonna find it.
the other issue that we have,
Search.
the other issue that we have is that, like right now, our meeting
It's very
started.
difficult.
As soon as our meeting started, it cancels an upcoming meeting and the Google Meet invitation disappears. So these are known issues that we've talked to them about and they haven't fixed. We contacted them and we said, hey, our menu structure sucks. I have to know exactly where the final destination is in order to get there. So I have to click here, click here, and then it takes me to it. And they said, well, this is a guided or a curated experience. It's like you're in a museum and you're walking through it. And I was like, well, that's great if I know where my destination is, but I don't know my destination, how do I get there? So, I have not been super excited about the website from the time I got here. Is it better? Well, the week I interviewed, I looked at your old website and then I got hired and I looked at your new website. It's leaps and bounds better than what you guys were using before. But it still has so many limitations, it needs to be updated.
Wait, let me add this. Bradley, you were in the middle of all this too when we were doing the taxes. We debated back and forth, back and forth. Should we just shut the whole daggone thing down or not? And you and we talked. Should we keep it up? Should we shut it down? We had that vote, that one meeting that night, and then we went ahead and shut it down. And then it stayed shut down until in January. And Steve, that was one of the main things you guys were all screaming about, was how bad the website was. The website has been bad for 3 years, partly because Monica was the only one that was in here to do anything. She just couldn't keep up with it. There's that point in time where you have to decide, do I do this or do I do that? What do you want done and what do you not want done? And that's just a broken record. And with the website, that was the way it was with Monica for about 2 years before we had the taxes passed. So we haven't really had a good website now in about 4 years.
Well, I'll say this, your websites are up to date, your information is being pushed out to the website right now. It's a lot better than it used to be. Can it be better? Absolutely, no question. But with the introduction of wanting new capabilities and having the ability to customize and stuff, it's just not gonna work. So we're gonna have to come up with another solution. And
Well, why don't we have it on the agenda item the next time for you to go ahead and propose how we're gonna fix it?
I will have it on the agenda. I'll put it on the agenda when we're ready to have the conversation.
I'm ready to have a conversation as the mayor with the things.
Mayor, if I don't have the answers to your questions, then we can come in here, we can talk about it, but I'm not gonna have an answer for you.
See, that's another thing I'm worried about, because you have so many different things you're dealing with. You just then said, I don't have time to do the website, and I've been trying to get the website done
That's not
for
what I said.
over a year and a half.
Mayor, so when you're working with a consultant, I sometimes call Bradley, and Bradley doesn't answer the phone. And so then I have to wait for Bradley to get finished with his other meetings and call me back.
So when are you gonna have it fixed?
We have to sit down and scope it out and figure out the timeline, and when I have that information, I'm more than happy to bring that information back.
You were ready for it to be fixed a year and a half ago.
Well, and the problem is there are computer whizzes, nerds, gurus, whatever. But the majority of people are novices like myself and need something that's user friendly. And our site's not user friendly. And what I object to is how much money was spent on something that doesn't work. That's the issue. Yeah.
Again,
It's bad.
I'll tell you, $4,500 for a website.
Before we got here,
Not
so what we need to focus on is what we
You
need
got
to do
just
to
what
change
you
it. And stop worrying about what happened.
We get,
Stop worrying about what happened.
you said there's not very many people because it's hard to get to. It's hard to get to.
So
Well,
there's all kinds of
there's
things
a
we
link
can do,
that have to
but
do
to
with
your
that.
point there, when I have good information, that's when I'll bring it back to the council, and let you know, this is the roadmap forward, this is what the cost is gonna be, but it's pointless for me to put it on.
Well, it's very important to the public and the citizens to have a good website, like you asked about when you were going to do you looked at the fire department.
Right.
And wanted to find out
I
about
want to find out a fireman.
yeah, and you're talking about saving money every time, that's what Monica and Brooke are having to answer on the telephone.
I eventually found it by just
Digging through.
digging through the documents. I found one that says, click here to go to Weiss County.
So I understand the frustration, and I understand the need for the new.
And the citizens need,
Well, but Mayor, again, I've reached out to the citizens.
no, I said the citizens need a good
And
website.
I agree, and we've reached out to the citizens, and we've asked them for their input and their feedback, and the majority of the people came back and said, this is way better than what we had in the past. What we'd like to see is this. And so we've implemented those changes that the residents have come forward with and said we'd like to see changes too.
Okay, I'm just hearing you, we're gonna end this, but we need to get the website fixed. We've been screaming
We
about it.
all
for 2
agree on the
years.
same page. It's just from the standpoint of you saying, when is it gonna be done? I can't give you that answer until I have better information, is all I'm telling you. I'm meeting with them next
And
week.
that shows a limitation of time, because you're having to deal with this developer,
No, I'm waiting on his schedule, not mine.
who's,
The person that I'm talking to about developing the website. Regardless of who I use, whether it's Bradley or Barry or somebody
well, if he
else.
doesn't have time to come to the meeting to talk to you about the website, he's not gonna probably have time to work on it when you hire him.
Well, once you get the money, you'll.
all right.
Yeah,
Okay, let's go on to the next
Wow.
slide.
Yeah, can we go on?
yeah, so
No, well, I was gonna talk about one more thing on here. Okay, really two more things. Three things.
Oh, we only have 8 signs, Jay. And it's up to you, Mayor, whether or not you want to talk about those things.
Okay,
We're talking about age.
the links on the items, you're not able to do the links on the items, because I had to go through this, and it takes a tremendous amount of time to go up and
the
down.
links are on the agenda. They've been on the agenda since I got here. If you download Acrobat, I sent you guys an email on it. I sent a screenshot out for you guys as well.
I've got it, but I still have to scroll down.
If you open up,
Oh,
if you come in with your computer, I'll show you how to do it, but it's
so it
already,
has the link by the agenda item.
absolutely.
Well, mine comes up, you can look at it and see it, it doesn't have it. And that's on the one you sent out this Saturday.
I'm telling you, if you pull it up, the bookmarks are in there. I'm more than happy if you want to come in.
I'm looking at, you wanna come over here and look at it?
Well, can we do that later and?
We'll do it later, but it's not on there.
Okay, so what's next?
Next is the same thing on the financial information. And the financial information that we have down here that's requested by the mayor. Okay, here once again, we spent $8,000 for the CPA to come in here and put the information, switch it over from Quicken to the new computer program. How much have we spent on that? On the computer program for the budget?
That was contracted before I got here, but I believe it was like $14,000 total for the setup and the annual fee. And then above and beyond that, they spent $8,000 with the CPA Kim to come in and help them set up account codes.
And Monica works with the consultant under that 14,500.
Yes, Scott Sargent supports it, and, if we have questions, concerns, need help, then he will, help her resolve issues.
Have you been happy with that program?
I mean, it's not the best system I've ever used in my life, but for the price, for the point that the city wants to spend, I mean, in my last city, when we did a transition to a new finance package, we spent $120,000.
Now, Steve, you've been talking a lot about the fact that you want to work on the budget all the time and about how much money is being spent in the budget and preparing for it.
Well,
Up until this time, I like to y'all probably don't care, but I kind of like to see how the money's being spent.
I do too. I haven't seen, we've collected $400,000 in taxes, and I don't see that anything's been done to improve our city.
Well, and I'm also talking about each one of the items, because Monica, who's doing it, Monica or Brooke? Both. And they input every itemized item, correct?
Now, they input every invoice.
Okay, so they're just like, what do you mean just the invoice? Is that like from Amazon or credit card?
Yeah, if it's an Amazon purchase, depending upon whether or not it needs to be split up, they might split the invoice up across 3 departments if it's multiple parties that are responsible for the cost. Or if it's an invoice for, one thing for like the extraction we bought for the fire department, that's gonna be one invoice, it's booked to one spot.
So you're gonna have the fire department column category?
Not at this time, because that's a liability, it's just a pass-through. We spent.
But I mean, you're gonna get the $4,000, 400, say, over the next 6 months, you're gonna be getting like $400,000.
That'll still come into the general fund. We might set up a department that would track the expenditures for fire department at that point.
Well, you, the city council, are the ones that evaluate how things are done here in the city. And you need, in my opinion, if you don't want to know, that's fine. But where you need to did it help you to kind of see where the money was going when he sent out just even the simple general ledger?
I thought that was fine, yeah.
Well, whenever you have this part over here on consent items, and you look at the agenda, the way we have it right now, it just says it's very
This is just general information. Okay, it's up to us to go and do that PDF that's on the end there, and to read what he has put out there. That's up to us to do it. That's what we're supposed to do, which I spent 5.5 hours today going over all that. Okay, like I always do before I come in here, because I'm off on Mondays now, so I can sit there and read over it. Same thing on Saturdays, I read over on Saturdays, I get it Friday night. So I read Saturday, then Mondays, before I come in here, I read back over it to see if there's something I want to ask questions about.
So this is the question. Right now, what I put into the financial report shows all the departments, shows all the account numbers, and it shows all the revenues and expenditures. It shows you what the actual budget is, what our current period is, what our year-to-date is, and what that ratio looks like, percentage, how much has been spent.
As of when, what's the date?
So this is as of October, this is as of
End of
December.
Yeah.
So this was the report that we presented to you in January. The January report will be in the next meeting because the fiscal year, or the fiscal month, today's February 1st. We didn't have the time to do it and put it into the packet. So this right here is showing you from the standpoint period revenues, fines and fees, tort fines, franchise fees. This is what we're charging there. Developer deposits, other revenue, construction permits, contractor registration, septic permits, current property tax, delinquent property tax, penalties, sales taxes. So it's already broken out, and it gives it to you in what we
That's
anticipate.
the beginning breakout.
This is broken out by account. Now, what he's saying is
Broken out by accounts.
he wants me to give
Current
you a
property tax,
detail,
list all the people that pay.
correct, every single transaction of money coming in.
No, I don't want the property taxes, I want the expenditures. Like with Bradley, I had no idea how the money was spent, how much money has come to him from which areas. Like, I don't know how many phone calls are going on between Bradley and you?
And honestly, you're not gonna know how many phone calls are going between Bradley and I, because I'm not going to tell you guys, I called Bradley 16 times this week, and next week I plan on calling 20.
Well, you were talking about me and my bill on how much I was spending on that one email.
Mayor, that's because when I contact him, there is a specific purpose for it, and there's a specific reason for contacting him.
So I had no specific reason to call.
If you look at those emails that you sent, you did not ask him a single question.
No, I didn't. I was
You did not.
talking about what I was asking you.
You didn't ask me anything other than for this, and I sent you the information. I said, this is the
Well,
general
we had
ledger.
the letters here.
Huh?
We had the letters here, and I could go through and read everything that I see.
Mayor, I don't need to go through everything.
Okay.
Mayor, we've seen it also.
When you send me an email that has
I
some impact on
requested
the
that each
council,
one get it.
Some of the times I've had questions, I came and talked to you, and he pulled up the budget, and showed me all the details. So I
He
know it's
does.
available to look at in these very offers it right.
and that budget is reflective of this information.
And I would like for you, city council members, to be able to get that anytime you want it,
I've been able to.
without having to come up here and talk to you.
Goes down
For the
on
convenience.
website.
Well, the budget is on the website, the
But not
expenditure is
the
not,
detail.
but from your standpoint, Mayor, that's not available anywhere, unless you're wanting us to update a system which allows us to publish our check register online. And you're not getting that for $9,000 a year, you're gonna have to go spend a lot more money.
Well, here's the next thing.
I don't know if that's.
Where I was wanting you to do is you're gonna be the ones that are gonna be evaluating the city manager. And you're gonna be determining whether he does a good job or if he spent the money correctly, if he's been accomplishing all the tasks that you think you ought to have. And you need all the input, and you also need to be figuring out how you're gonna be evaluating him during the next year. And when is the next evaluation gonna be on him?
The next evaluation will be on February 15th.
I'm not
And
sure
so-
anybody has a problem with that, though. We already went through all of this. When
You're-
we first got hired, when we first started this, we already said we're fine.
Yeah, you say it right now, but when you're coming down to working on the budget and you're working on the other items,
I don't think anybody has any problem with that.
no, that's not what I'm saying. You may not today, but you need to have a good background whenever you come down to the time that you do an evaluation, because you are the city council and you are the bosses.
Mayor, we all realize, we all realize,
Well,
You have a lot of responsibility to the citizens, and you need to make sure that they know, and that was what you all ran on.
you bet.
Was you were upset about the taxes, you were upset about the money, you were wanting to know about where the money was going.
Yeah.
You wanted to know about,
If
the roads,
if somebody
everything.
comes to me and said, you, the city collected $400,000 in taxes, where did it go?
Mhm.
That's.
you've got the
They don't have
basic
access to
information.
that.
like
They do,
that.
they have access to this, it's in every
I thought you
packet.
said it wasn't on the website.
It's in every packet, we put, and every packet's on the website.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
I thought you just said it wasn't. on the
No, I said, he said you should have access to it anytime you want without having to come down here and talk to me.
Well, you
yeah,
want to
the only way to do that is you gotta.
If you wanna come drill down even further,
website.
then you can come in here and talk to me or Monica, and she can drill down further for you. But our system does not have the capabilities to put that out
We
into
are
the
not
public
Fort Worth
for anybody to
Dallas.
come in and pull it up and do a query. There are places you can do it, and there's software that we can purchase that makes that available to us, but you're not getting it for the price we have.
We're not Fort Worth Dallas.
Oh, I
You know,
absolutely.
But you are Rome and Justin and North Lake.
No, we're not wrong, we're not. just-
Well, so
we're
to
just-
that point, I'll tell you this, the quality of your financial reports compared to any other city in Wise County is far superior. I've already shown you what theirs
I've
look
looked
like.
at Decatur's a lot.
Do you know what Decatur's budget is?
Yes.
And the amount of staff that they have?
Yes.
Okay, so again, you try to compare the city of
But I mean, I
Fairview
just
to
wanted to make
Northwest,
sure
or you try to
you
compare the
knew that.
city to Decatur.
I just wanted to make sure that you
Yeah, one
knew.
more item, let's do
One more item.
I make a motion.
We got one more
No,
item.
I'm gonna get mine, I'm gonna get mine out.
Good deal. Go ahead.
The next item, go ahead. You want
So we received a request from a council member regarding review of the speed limits in New Fairview. I just need to find out if there's other council members that are interested in having that on the future agenda, so we can discuss that and potentially come forward with.
It needs to be on the agenda. I mean, the traffic jams down here and the wrecks and the people running through my fences. Over there on the South County Line Road, I mean, the wrecks are unreal. Now, y'all didn't answer the one the other day.
The speed limit on
Yes, we can.
highway.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. As long as it's in the city limits, we have the ability to do that.
There's the ability to go through a process of setting up and putting in place a speed limit inside the city.
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing 407 lower, maybe a little at 60, but
I thought it was.
It is
60. That's what I mean. It could be lower at 5 mile an hour, it'd be 55 like going into.
I'm not concerned about 407, I'm concerned about 2264.
Well, that's fine, so we'll add that to a future agenda item,
60 mile an hour.
and we can have that
Yeah,
conversation.
it is.
The other item that we received a request was potentially changing the city council meeting date from a Monday to a different day.
Yeah, that was, I requested that. Is there anything that needs to be, well, you know, the fire meeting's on Monday night, you'll have,
Is it?
I'm gonna jump in, just,
Yeah, go
Ben
ahead.
has to carry this a lot, I just wanna make, Ben's approaching this in a certain manner, because this isn't on the agenda for discussion tonight. It's on the agenda for, do we wanna talk about it next time? So, rather than an explanation, right, what's proper here is this something that we can talk about, or are you open to? And we'll come back and have that conversation.
I mean, it's not a huge thing to me, I was just wondering if, you know, you always have to do it on Monday night.
Yes, so we have to select and identify a date, and then that has to be consistent. Now, if the
It has to
council.
be every Monday night?
No,
I mean, every time you meet, it's on
be
Monday night.
It
Because
just have to-
Monday
it just has
next
to be-
month, Wednesday next month.
Yeah, no, we can't. You can't just jump it around like that. It needs to be identified and consistent.
So
But it can be any
But
day
it
you
can
want.
be any day, you can do it on Sunday if you want.
You can do it, Sunday at 2 p.m. I mean, there's no limitation that way, just.
Well, I would like on Sundays.
I know,
So we couldn't
We
affect
can't
it
do that.
tonight, is that what you're saying?
that's correct.
It's just you
We're
guys
just
want to
gonna
talk,
decide
are you
if we
open
need to
to
talk
having a
about it.
conversation?
Okay,
Would you guys like to add that?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that's fine.
as long as it doesn't take very long, this wasn't that pressing of a.
No, it's fine. And guys, in minutes, we're already gonna have the financial report in the upcoming meeting. If you guys don't want to do the consent agenda item, we can move that to the 15th, since that's when the financial report will be out as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Please.
Okay.
Now make a motion.
To adjourn. All in favor?
Ben, would you, please put on the city's website that the city council apologizes for not having a public forum?
Oh, yeah.
And then it's fixed, so next time we'll do that first. So maybe we can encourage people to come.
That's very important.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I think we need to allow them to come up after each agenda item. And that's how it's supposed to be.
If they want to, but
If
at
they
least
want
let them,
Yeah.
at least let them come when they
Well-
first get.
to. Right, I agree.
If y'all could leave through the office, Mike, we need signatures.
These what?
Signatures.
And we found out tonight why you're using that agenda. It was what, the past interim city manager design.
This is pretty consistent with what you see across most cities using.
No, but I mean, that was what he changed by putting the open forum in the middle of the agenda.
No, that's pretty consistent from time to where it's at. I mean, that's about where we had it in our last place.
Well, we've done it 15 years for
Hey,
being in the beginning.
Bradley, appreciate you coming out.
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate it.
So how many have filed for office?
One.